Yeah.
YouTube.
Okay. Steph looks perfectly normal. Jeff,
Yep.
you're like twice the size. You, Jeff, and Dana are about twice the size in my screen as you normally are.
Well,
They are significantly more zoomed
pounds.
in. Like, I feel like I'm the farthest zoomed out because I don't mess with my.
Yeah, see if I can.
Oh.
But it could be my end. I don't know. Sometimes I get this thing where the picture inside the browser is much larger than it should.
I mean, I have zoomed in because when I zoom out, you can see the edges of the thing.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I could only get your half your nose, your right eye.
Oh, that's really
He's examining the pores.
That's
Is that better for you?
You got closer.
Yeah, very good. I was counting Jeff's nasal hairs.
Okay, let me see if I can get.
You all look normal size to me.
Good.
Except for when Dana got really close.
It's Dr. Seth saying we're just average. Just average men.
Just average sized.
Just average sized men.
You know.
What can you say?
So I gave Liz the.
Well, Glenn has made it.
Glenn good.
Power. Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Glenn. The New Zealand people, the Kiwis, can figure this out.
What's this about us talking garbage? What?
Well, what else is there to do on this show?
Did somebody say that we were talking garbage?
I don't know.
Do we ever not?
I'm pretty sure that's the only type of talking we do.
Yeah.
Aviation garbage. Thank you.
Yeah. That's type specific garbage.
Specialized garbage.
Type specific garbage.
Okay.
I didn't see any troublemakers in the chat. Maybe there were before I got there.
Well, you're the one that said garbage, Stephanie. What were you talking about?
Oh, I was referencing a comment that Glenn made.
Well, I don't see.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. He must have given you a private message because I don't see. It's alive is all I see from him.
Yes,
and hello.
That's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right.
It's okay.
I don't care. Okay, so now I need to set this thing up. Oh, shoot. Why is it not? Dang it.
Where are you overnight tonight, Jeff?
Pardon?
Are you at home?
I am at home, yes.
I like that background.
Thank you. Next time, though, I record at home. I hope to have I just got it. It was just delivered today, my big screen TV that will be behind me.
It looks like you're in a fancy waiting room with a shopping trolley hanging from the ceiling.
Certainly good. Here's my info. Come right back. Coming.
So it's Christmas.
Okay, I got to set up the recording thing. Why is it only seeing... Oh, darn it. Come on, Jeff. Everything just got all knocked out of whack.
Everything's all discombobulated.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I love that word. And it's just such a cool word, isn't it?
That's one of my favorites.
Yep.
Is there a combobulated?
Recombobulation?
Or recombobulated?
Doesn't Milwaukee have a sign?
That's right. Yeah, I think
recombobulation area.
To me, all of a sudden, we've had this discussion. Somebody sent us that picture. Maybe it was you, Steph.
Oh yeah, it was not me, but
okay.
I think several people have sent it to us.
Okay, mono.
Why did we have to restart? Because Jeff's internet said goodbye.
And I guess there's only a certain amount of time that I have to get back online before the thing just goes, oh, well, the host isn't here anymore, so bye.
Yeah. You must want to end this.
Yeah.
Did you forget to end your hangout? We will end it for you.
Yes.
No, wait.
Regardless of whether there are actually people watching it or not, we're going to end it. So there. Okay, somebody say something on the hangout, please.
Hello.
Perfect. Hello.
All right. right, so that's 2 channels or 2 tracks set up. Let me get the iPad stereo, and the iPad is
Someone's
yellow,
going to
11, 12.
Gdansk and Warsaw in one day.
That's what she
Neil.
said.
And then you're going to have a Frankfurt. Mm. Wow, you should.
Now you can control volume here. Okay.
And
Okay, we
stereo.
are in room.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
I'm muting.
Well, okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't have to. It was just
Instead of typing.
No, yeah. It would be hanged himself, Nick, not hung.
yes,
Depends
wrong.
what I'm talking
wrong.
about.
Past.
I'm not sure how it works the other way, actually.
I could invent a way.
Is hung, yeah,
Yeah.
but I have not hung myself.
You could have. You could have. Okay. I have a rude connotation on that.
You have quite a bit of discipline. You've stopped yourself.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Thank you. We all thank you.
I'm just taking notes.
You're right. But I think probably hanged and hung is
You hear?
probably usable because now it's common. It's a bit like
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right because so many people improperly use it, like
but
nauseated
that
and
makes
nauseous.
it proper. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't like that.
There's a box.
Hello,
though.
APG community. This is Tom from Columbia, Missouri, and I'm letting you know that we are coordinating a meetup with Captain Jeff on Monday, April 20th.
That's
Wow.
kind
So I've got Ken here. He's off the camera because he's being shy, and he's
We don't want to see him.
I've caught sight of his elbow, so we know he's there.
yeah, he's right here.
What is Steph doing?
guys doing?
Pip asked what was in the box. I can only assume he was referring to this, which was kind of off screen. It's not
Oh, okay.
actually a box, and it's
It's
empty.
Happy now?
It did contain a couple of posters, which were gifts for people
at
at one time.
He's
And
nosy, isn't he?
Jordan, I did not get burned. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon
They're responding what they're responding to.
when I was out on the.
We have a live
on the
chat
lake.
room, so
Actually
we're
on the
live
dock.
on YouTube. So Ken wants to say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hi, how
Hi,
you guys
Ken.
doing? Hey, how y'all doing?
Good.
How are you?
Good. Great to hear you.
Well, it's great to be here. Appreciate Dana inviting me in.
Excellent. Glad
Well,
to have you.
You may think so now.
Would you
Give it
say,
an
Jeff?
hour.
I said you may think so now, but give us a chance. You'll probably
Yeah, that's right.
hate that you took him up on this offer.
We got 3.5 hours to go yet, and we haven't even started.
Coming.
What? Okay. I'm going to be playing something on my computer here to see if it's going to be working in the channel.
29th. It's going to take place at Q39.
You heard that?
Yep.
Good. Okay. So I have 2 music sources. I have the Hangout and myself. I think that's it.
Has the
Okay.
fallen tree been removed? I don't think so, Liz. I think it is still obstructing the cove.
The voluntary.
Fallen tree?
Oh, fallen tree.
The voluntary
Sorry,
fallen tree.
I'm getting a bit old and a bit deaf. I thought you said voluntary.
Fallen tree.
This is when, Nick, you say, you kids, you just mumble.
Yeah,
Fallen tree. Whenever
See?
take down, change.
using all that modern slang like fallen tree. What does
It's not.
that
It's
mean?
not modern slang. It's just Southern English. American.
Yeah. I'm still terrified of these goddamn mosquitoes that I'm going to have to fight.
Don't worry about it.
I have to battle my way through them.
Look, you couldn't be any more mosquito magnetic than I am.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Oh, good. We'll
Okay.
just hang out with you then.
Yeah, we
No,
will.
you don't want to do that. You
No,
want
no, no. If they're all attacking you, we should.
Yeah,
be
you
fine.
should make sure that you're nowhere near where I am.
When I lived in Australia, we had a season when it was so bad that you couldn't step outside of your front door at night, and we had a reticulation system that wasn't automatic, so we'd have to water the grass, and then before we went to bed, one of us used to have to go out and turn off the water, and it was about 10 feet from the door to the tap and back again. And I used to absolutely smother myself in RID, which was the common, DEET equivalent.
Mhm.
Isn't that a
And
rat poison here?
literally sprint from the door to the tap and back again. When I came back in the house, yeah, exactly. When I came back in the house, I got a severe slapping as all the mosquitoes that had latched on. Julie was killing them, smacking away.
I
It was just terrible.
I think I would
Don't
just
think-
bathe in DEET.
I don't think I've ever had that experience. Thank goodness.
No.
Yeah. And then we got an invasion of bogon moths, as opposed to the Vogons in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. These weren't
Right.
the poetry wasn't nearly so bad, but the bogon moths, they literally swept in, and they were, you get fly screens and things and doors and windows, literally blacked out the house because you just couldn't see through the fly screens because of the thousands of moths, and they got in everywhere.
People go to Australia and they talk about how wonderful it is, and then I hear stories like this about the things that live in Australia, and it makes me not
There are no
really
wild
excited.
animals or weird
No,
insects there at all.
Nothing that will kill you there. Yeah,
No.
definitely.
Not
Much.
a lot. No, I won't kill you a lot. I'll kill you
I'll kill you
A little
once,
bit.
really, really well, and then you won't
Yeah.
have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think my recorder's going here, and I
Oh.
think we might be actually ready to try to start this thing.
Yeah. I've got my
Let's do our
recorder going.
recorders.
Oh, Dana's still not around.
Dana,
Oh, sorry.
Come back, Dana. Always forgiven.
False alarm there.
did somebody put Dana in timeout?
I don't know.
No, he put himself in time.
Oh,
Isn't this 372?
it is. And I need to.
Look who was paying attention.
You are. Wow. So I think I had the discussion with Liz. I'm not sure if it translated over to the APG crew, if you guys heard, but so I was doing I finally got the last show that we did, the Feedback Extra, published. But in trying to publish, because Apple has some new tags and they want you to use episode numbers, and anyways, it's too complicated to get into. But anyway, I tried to use 370.5 and it didn't like that. It said, I'm sorry, this is not an integer. Okay,
There
well,
you go.
You're like, well, it's a half an
I'm
inch.
sorry.
Yeah.
It's a fraction of an integer, which I guess is kind of the opposite of an integer. But anyway, so I thought, okay, fine. I'll just rename it 371. Of course, it's going to confuse everybody out there, but so that was 371, the Feedback Extra, and now we're on 372. There you go. And I do apologize for the confusion. And let's see. You ready for the clap? You'll have to unmute yourself. Well, I guess you don't have to, Dana. Are you?
Yeah, I was just intending to get Brett. I now have Brett here, and also Ken, who is being very shy on the camera. So,
Well, how many people you have there?
3 of us total.
Oh, okay. Well,
Party.
you'll have to tell us all about that once we get started. Okay, I'll let you do the introduction part when we're on you, so to speak.
Okay.
When we're
What?
on you.
That's what she said.
I
Okay.
like when we're on me.
Yeah. So we're going to do the, do you have your recording going, Dana?
I do not. Give me 1 second, and
Okay.
it's going right now.
Okay.
I have it
Beautiful.
all set up, ready to go.
Sweet. Okay. Here we go. APG 372. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. One of these days it's going to be shocking when it all happens at the same time.
Never going to happen.
No, it won't. If it does, it's time to just hang it up.
Buy a lottery ticket and
Yeah.
retire.
And quit.
I'll be right back. I got to go out.
Well, it'll mean, if it happens all at the same time, it means the internet's broken.
That's
Yeah,
true.
That's really what it means.
Okay, let's see. Roger came in at the last moment, even though I was going to tell him to record this after the fact, but he went ahead and
Sneaking it in under the wire.
yeah, right under the wire here. Let's make sure we can hear Roger. Roger.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 372.
Yeah, you hear him all right?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Okay, very good. And you're where, Dana?
You're in Raleigh, Durham.
Yeah, and that's
Chapel
the
Hill.
Caroline.
Chapel Hill, NC.
The Carolina Inn.
Carolina Inn. Okay, here we go.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 372.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door with your host, Captain Jeff, at the controls as always. Today's show is recorded on the 25th of April, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Put your light and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a German government jet suffers serious damage in an emergency landing. The FAA grounds all Cirrus Vision jets over its angle of attack indicators, and a pilot tells air traffic controllers they're incompetent. More news, your feedback, and in today's Plane Tales, into thinner air. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 372 is ready for pushback.
Thanks, Radio Roger, for that great intro. And yes, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show. It's an aviation podcast / talk show. And we're here today to cover aviation news and give our commentary and also answer your fantastic feedback. And here to help me with that, from our Lakeside studio in South Carolina, she's a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Good afternoon. How nice to see you again.
Very nice to see you as
I will
well.
do my best to help you. I have suddenly developed a case of the hiccups during that intro, so
I'm sure they're
doing what I
cute,
can to. Yes,
cute hiccups.
Cute hiccups. Probably not.
Okay. Well, there are some other people here. While you're hiccuping, they can help me. From a studio in the English countryside, a professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, current captain for an international airline based in London. Yes, it's Captain Nick.
Well, hey, evening, Jeff, and everyone else. Lovely to be back on the show. Looking forward to a good one. Nothing much changes here, but I'm sure we'll have something new to discuss.
Absolutely. And last but not least, joining us from his mobile studio at the Carolina Inn in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, it is a barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier, Captain Dana. Captain Dana. Unmute. Calling Captain Dana. You're muted on the Hangout. Yeah. There you go.
Now you can, I'm sorry. I don't know where it went. Anyways, hey, great to be here at another fantastic episode of APG and get some guests I'll introduce in a little bit. And looking forward to another great show.
Okay, did you say you don't know where it went?
That's what she said.
Yep.
Right. Well, no. Why don't you introduce your guests right now, please?
Why don't I?
Yes.
Well, I am flying with a very good buddy of mine that I've known we were discussing in the flight deck earlier. I've known him for 15 plus years from my former Acme life at my regional carrier, and now we're getting to fly together today and enjoy a trip that he picked up because I happened to be on it and it was an open time. So I introduce him. It's my buddy Ken, and he is going to say hello.
Hey guys, thanks Dana for having us.
Hey, Ken. Great to have you with us as well.
Also sitting in the room, what's your last name? Okay, all right. Yeah, he just wants me to leave it at that. Okay, so anyways, edit that out, Jeff. Anyways,
I
sitting
didn't hear
next
it,
to me,
actually.
good. Sitting also in the room, I've got a Army aviator that I just found out, and he just showed up just before we started the show today, and he decided to come join us and watch the live taping of us here at APG. So I'm going to have him say hello here real quick, and his name is Brett. Welcome, Brett.
Thanks, Dana. Hey, crew. Just saw Dana was on the schedule and sent him a message, and real easy to link up with him, and excited to see the show and hang out a little bit with these guys tonight.
Excellent. Well, I hope you enjoy the show. And if there's something that we're talking about that you think you can lend your expertise with us, just please don't hesitate to do so.
Okay, he's he will
Okay.
absolutely contribute if he can.
All right. Very good.
Both
Very
of
good.
them.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let's see what we do here in the beginning of the show. If you're new to our show, we talk about what has been happening with us since our last episode. And let's start with you, Dana, since we're kind of focused on your mobile recording studio at this moment.
Yeah, I've got it all set up here and getting to enjoy some quality time with these guys. That's now and what happened in the past. Been a couple of interesting trips I just recently had. Just came back from working 6 days in a row, had 1 day off. Had a lot of weather to deal with in association with that. Of course, it's the standard reroute, long days. Had one almost 14-hour day to reduce rest evening. And I lost an overnight in Indianapolis with one of our APG listeners that was going to meet up with me. So that I do apologize for. The other things that we had going on, I had taxiing out. I had a pretty interesting mechanical on the engine anti-ice. And when that occurred, we taxied back to the gate because we tried all of our known procedures, could not get it resolved. And what made me feel actually real bad is a lot of the passengers were connecting to the once a day flights going to like places like Bon Air and San Jose, Costa Rica, and so forth. But unable to fix the airplane real quick, the local mechanic, which is a contract mechanic, went out to the back of the airplane. All he had to do was manually close the valve. And what was very interesting is on the outside of the valve, on the actual part, usually there's inscription engraved into the side of it where the valve position would be. This airplane did not have that inscription, so we could not figure out which position the valve was in to manually close it. So that was the real interesting part of the whole thing. So we took an extensive delay due to that. We had to wait for mechanics to come in from another outstation, and because they were coming in for the earlier flight, both of us, the 6:30 and 6 a.m. and us the 7:30, both the aircraft had to return to the gate on the same day.
And where was
that? That was in Louisville, Kentucky. So they were able to ship us out about noontime-ish and get that all resolved. So that was the interesting thing there with that trip. I'm not going to go into details with all that. The other one really interesting is I had my first passenger bad experience that I had to deal with, and that was in Sarasota 2 days ago. About 4:00 in the afternoon, my flight attendant, when we were boarding, my flight attendant came up and said, "Captain, I just had a passenger go on, was kind of belligerent and mean to me, and my, both our flight attendants were standing there, and she appeared to be under the influence." So I said, "Well, let's give the person a chance, see what's going on. Maybe she just was being discourteous, and let her sit down and see how she acts." So we gave her about 20 minutes. And the flight attendant came back up and said, yeah, she's not improving at all. She's just being rude, and passengers around her starting to complain. So I decided to do what I do every flight. I got up and went ahead and talked to my to my passengers in first class. I almost said flight attendants, but I also spoke to them. And speaking to my passengers and making the presentations I would normally do, and welcoming them on the aircraft and thanking them for their business. She became quite belligerent towards me and slurring her words and not talking in a coherent sense and yelling stuff. I kind of looked at her and I was like, okay. And I started a small talk conversation. And then I asked, and, I just kind of threw it out there to see how she would react. I said, anybody around here ride motorcycles? Oh, I love motorcycles, in a drunk way. So at that point, I knew that we had to put a stop to it. And it's FAR part 121, 570, 575 or 525. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. So anyways, I looked that up and proceeded to get the customer service agents involved, and then she refused to get off the airplane. Well, now, due to the events that we've talked about right here on this show, remember back to the United Express incident where the police had dragged the customer off the airplane. Well, if this passenger refused to get off the aircraft, we were now in a complete deplane situation. Fortunately, after the customer service manager had come over, what we would call a red coat, she had refused to come off the aircraft. The station manager was fortunately able to talk her off the aircraft. And by the way, folks, this is a first class passenger, and it's the first class passengers that were complaining about her. And of course, those are the higher value customers that we care about here at the airline.
I'd say she was a low class customer.
Yeah, I would say so. So come to find out, so the police were called. They were in the jetway, and we were ready to deplane the aircraft if need be after the last attempt to ask her kindly to get off the aircraft. Come to find out that she had a coffee cup in her hand, and in the coffee cup was an entire cup full of wine, which at 4:00 in the afternoon, I don't think she needed to have in her hand. Especially bringing it on our aircraft against regulations, obviously. So we were able to get her removed, and of course, away to Atlanta we went, about 15 minutes behind schedule. But so that was quite an interesting event, dealing with all that coordination. First time I've had to, convene the security team, get everybody involved, coordinate with all different departments, and make that command decision that this person is not fit to fly on our aircraft.
Well, I'm glad you didn't have to get the Dr. Dow treatment on her.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that did not happen. So
I'm just curious, Dana, were many of the other passengers filming what was going on?
Apparently so. There were several of the other passengers that were filming. As a matter of fact, the passenger pointed out to the flight attendant as they were getting off the aircraft once we got into Atlanta, that they had filmed the entire thing and said how great of a job she did.
Oh, good. Well, that's nice.
It was very well handled, apparently, as far as people were concerned, and I felt bad about it, but I think this person clearly has bigger problems than worrying about being drunk in a seat on an airplane in first class at 4:00 in the afternoon than what's leading on. So obviously, there's a big problem there.
Let's not have a straw poll about who hasn't been drunk at 4:00 in the afternoon, please.
Yeah, well,
hopefully not with your own glass of wine that you have brought.
Well, who else's glass of wine are you going to get drunk with?
As far as you know, that this is actually just some kind of a soft drink or a
Del
Coca-Cola
Taco.
product.
Do you guys,
in here.
I was
you
going
guys have
to.
Del Taco?
I was going to say it is only 4:47 in the afternoon, East Coast time right now, and I've got a Guinness Draft Stout. Thanks very much to Brett's contribution to the show this afternoon.
Nice.
So we thank you very much, Brett. So we are drinking an adult beverage at 4:47 in the afternoon, but not stumbling completely belligerently drunk. mind you.
Brett, just don't give him
Well,
too much, please.
that's a matter of opinion, Dana. Tell me, does that Guinness have the widget in it that
Yes,
makes
it
it
does.
open foamy? Oh, it makes it gorgeous. It's lovely stuff.
It's awesome. He did very well in his selection of
Well,
of
congratulations.
beverages.
Very nice, very nice. Anything else, Dana? Well, hey, we had a question for you when we were recording last week's show that you weren't with us on. Doing the feedback extra, we were looking at some of your tweets and we were looking at some of the screenshots of the weather, and it looks to me like you had quite a bit of weather you had to kind of work your way through or around when you were going from Savannah to Atlanta. Is that the case?
Yeah, I wanted to keep it short for you today, but I will
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that because the normal flight time, and let me start back at the gate. We called air traffic control with our diligence of 20 minutes prior to departure time and asked for our flow, and amazingly enough, they gave us no flow after we had the airport was shut down for a while, gave us no flow, and just gave us controlled takeoff time. We pushed back, and just as we're about to start the engines, we got the notification from dispatch that the airport in Atlanta was being shut down again. So we sat out there waiting and waiting, and it was going to be an hour wait on the airplane for just an update. Dispatch talked me out of going back into the gate, and actually it worked out pretty well because they ended up delaying us about 40 minutes. They gave us a reroute instead of us going all the way down through the panhandle of Florida and back up on the west side. They sent us up over Greenville, Spartanburg, and came down the northeast quadrant. Flying time normally between Savannah and Atlanta, roughly 30 to 35-ish minutes, give or take a couple here and there. The planned flight time, 1 hour and 33 minutes between Augusta and Atlanta. So we had to navigate our way around all that, and then ultimately did end up having to hold going into Atlanta, and that's what started our entire day off. We got into Atlanta, I think the normal block between the two is about an hour and 15-ish, hour and 20 minutes at the most, maybe a little less. And it took us 2.5 hours from the time we pushed back until the time we got into Atlanta. So we ended up way behind schedule as a result of that. But that weather was atrocious. That spawned, I think, a few a lot of tornadic activity on the east coast of the U.S. Significant impact on flights and delays all over the place.
So did you make it to Pittsburgh or Indianapolis or wherever it was you were supposed to go?
That's where the reroute happened. And instead of going to Indianapolis, I ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, which was going to be a good thing because the Embassy Suites is really nice. And, they have that happy hour from 5:30 to 7:30, free food, free drinks. Guess what time we got into the hotel?
7:30.
7:29. I was so mad. I was so fit to be tired. I was like, this is like the absolute ending to a perfect day. And I didn't mention it, but my FO on that trip, he was an F-14 and F-18 driver, and had one of the best attitudes of any fighter pilot I have ever been around. Just really a pleasant guy to be around, real good pilot, competent. And if I'm gonna have to do battle with somebody, that's the type of guy I want to do battle with.
That's kind of unusual. F-18 guys are usually jerks in my
we don't like them.
experience.
Yeah, we don't like them.
They're not very nice.
Yeah, get lost, you lot.
Yeah. Nah, I did tell him about Captain Nick. So,
all right.
Yeah,
all right,
what do I care?
We know you care, and we care too. Okay. Well, let's jump over to Captain Nick because we care about him and what he's been doing.
Well, not a lot going on over here, Jeff. I'm still trying to get my back fit. The specialist has given me 3 options. I can have a lot of metal work put in my back and have it fused. I can go through a series of injections into the facet joints and the damaged discs, of which there are 3, one of which has split. And that would take several weeks because he would do them one at a time, and it would take at least 6 injections, he said, to cover the whole area. So all of that would take time. Or he said you can wait 4 to 6 weeks and it'll probably get better on its own. So I've opted for the 4 to 6 weeks. it'll get better on its own option, since nothing was going to really be much quicker than that. And I'm just waiting, and it is starting to get a little better. I'm coming off one of the major drugs I've been on, but I have to wean myself off that. Apparently, you have withdrawal symptoms. And some of the stiffness and pain is starting to return, but it's manageable at the moment. So I can't sit still for very long. I'm fine if I'm moving. So at the moment, sitting still in an airplane flying it is obviously out of the question. Time's running out. I'm pretty certain I won't make the Atlanta trip. I haven't written off entirely, because you never know in life. You never know, but I'm really not banking on it. And so I think we're going to have to make Oshkosh the big goodbye. So
that sounds like fun.
It would be fun.
One of our listeners sent in some advice for you, Captain Nick, regarding your back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Here, let me play this audio for you.
This is Miami Hick. You never know who you run into at the airport nowadays. See all sort of folks. But I ran into the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger getting on a flight, so I stopped him to record a little inspiration, get well message for Captain Nick. So take it away, Arnold.
This is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm here with my good friend, Miami Hick. And we're here to pump you up, Captain Nick. You need to get down and stretch your back and get to the Airbus. Get to the Airbus. Do it now. Do it now. Who is your daddy? I am your daddy. Do what your daddy says for you to do. Your daddy says to put the cookie down, and you need to get to the Airbus. So what are you waiting for? Do it now.
Okay.
That's perfect.
A little harsh.
I mean, that's exactly the advice I would have given as a medical professional.
Put the cookie down.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Arnold and Miami Hick, for that magnificent piece of consultation. I will get to the Airbus immediately and see if things improve. How's that?
Well, I thought you'd appreciate that advice.
That was absolutely brilliant. I've never met Mr. Schwarzenegger, ex-governor Schwarzenegger, in person, sadly. But he sounds like quite a character, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe he'll be at Oshkosh.
You never know. Apparently, you run into him in all kinds of places.
Really?
These days.
He would probably complain a bit about my core strength. So that might actually do me some good if they help me build up my core.
Hey, are there going to be any meetups in your neck of the woods anytime in the next, let's say, month or so?
Nah, well, if I don't get flying again, I fully intend to take advantage of the Duxford meetup. So the Imperial War Museum at Duxford, the aerodrome, fantastic aviation museum. Lots of the exhibits are flying. I don't know how many will be flying on that day, but it's the 13th, Sunday, I believe, Sunday the 13th. And to be fair, I'm hijacking this because this is a PT UK and plane safety podcast meetup. And I'm going to try and turn it into an APG meetup instead. So if any of our listeners who want to come along, and if I can, I will certainly be there.
I believe it's the 12th, which is the Sunday.
Sunday the 12th. My apologies. You're right. I was due to go to Atlanta on the 13th.
So the APG going to be crashing the party.
We are. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that Pilot Pip is going to pop by and pick me up in a flying machine.
Ooh.
Yeah. It'll be a lot nicer of the 45 minutes in a flying machine than 2.5 hours in a car. So my back will appreciate that, Pip. If the weather holds out and we can organize that, that'll be brilliant.
Very good. Very good. All right. Miss Stephanie, have you been doing anything interesting of recent?
Yeah, actually. So last weekend was the Easter holiday. Happy Easter to everyone. And after we recorded what did we do that feedback extra? Friday?
I think it was Friday.
It was Friday. It was off of work. Yes. I had plans again to do a little bit of flying with Armand, speaking of PT UK, and his lovely wife, Megan. And we were planning on doing that on Saturday. Saturday did not work out because the weather did not clear up from Friday in time to do any real VFR flying. It was really kind of nasty and windy and gross still. So we pushed it back to Sunday. which was Easter. But hey, we were planning on going in the morning. Seemed like a nice time for flying. Most people are probably in church, as perhaps we should be. But anyway, we
You can pray inside an airplane.
yeah,
In fact,
yeah.
a lot of people do.
A lot of people pray when I'm at the controls.
So anyway, it seemed like a good idea, and actually the weather looked beautiful that morning. So got up and drove out to Armando's on the other side of town from me. So his local airport out there, he had gotten checked out in one of their Piper Arrows, which was very nice. So he rented it for the morning, the afternoon, and I drove up to meet them, which was about an hour away from me. So not super close, but that's all right. And our plan was to fly over to Asheville and get a rental car and go out to eat, and then do a little Sunday brunch, and then get back in the airplane and fly back to Lincoln County. And we got in the air and discovered that we're looking at the forecast and the weather, and obviously it planned it pretty well. And the weather was supposed to clear up over Asheville, and we had given it plenty of time, and it never really did clear as much as it was supposed to. So it was still kind of marginal VFR. 1,800-foot ceilings or so. We're like, well, that's okay. We'll go take a look at it because it's really just the weather's that way. The clouds are that way. If we need to, we'll just turn around and come back. It's all nice and fine over here. Not forecast to get any worse. And we got over there, and really we could have gotten in VFR. The problem is that because the ceiling was still kind of low, most of the traffic coming in was on, they were all on instrument flight plans. So they were all flying the ILS, and it's a single runway there in Asheville. And we would have been number 5 behind the traffic they already had, not counting anyone else who might have come in at that time. And it just seemed like that was probably not a great thing for us to try to be mixing in with all of that at the moment. I could almost kind of hear it when we checked in with with approach. It was like, you want to come in VFR? Oh, okay. Well,
Really?
Don't enter the Charlie yet. Stand by. Okay. So we decided, you know what, we'll just go back. It's been a nice day for flying. Hey, there's another airport along the way. We'll stop in at Kilo Foxtrot, Quebec Delta, I believe it was, which is Rutherford County. I was flying. Armando did a little quick looking on ForeFlight, said they had a restaurant. We tried to call them, but we didn't really have any signal where we were in the airplane. But he thought he heard someone answer before the signal quit. So we're like, well, maybe someone's there. If not, we'll just, physiologic break, get back in the airplane, and then go back home. So we landed, kind of a typical, North Carolina small airport, one FBO building. As we're taxiing by, there's 2 older gentlemen sitting out front on their rocking chairs, just kind of watching the day. And we park the plane and wander over, and we find this cute little, one room, 1 table inside, couple picnic benches outside restaurant, the 57 Alpha Cafe. And it happened to be open on Easter Sunday at 11 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
I want to know if those 2 old guys were playing banjos.
They very well may have been. I would not have been surprised.
Sorry,
It is kind of Appalachia up there, getting close to being in the mountains. Anyway,
Not quite.
Not quite. No, it's just on the. Well, no, it's pretty close.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was the food like?
So the food was great.
Oh wow!
So you had two menu. Well, he had one big menu board, but one side of the menu said "for gringos." Older Caucasian gentleman running the place, and it was cheeseburger, hamburger, the usual $100 hamburger fare. And then the other side was all this like Tex-Mex stuff. So green chili burrito, quesadillas, nachos. So I think Armando and I both had the green chili burrito, and Megan had some quesadillas, and it was really nice. It was a nice day outside still. The sun was shining there. So we sat out on one of the picnic benches and had our Easter brunch of Tex-Mex food at a little, off the grid airport in Rutherford County, North Carolina.
And you'll never forget it.
I love the photograph you posted. Tell me, what was Meg's V sign for?
I think really it should have been the other direction.
This way.
No, as you rightly pointed out, she was clearly upset that we relegated her to the back seat.
Yeah.
And Armando stuck an extra camera on her headset so that he could record additional video footage. So hopefully he'll have that all compiled.
So you guys didn't even give her one leg up front?
No.
That's mean.
You didn't let her put one of her legs up front?
Well, hey,
Well,
Jeff.
so she's got
Am-
plans to start working on her private pilot's license here.
Oh, nice.
So she will be doing a lot of upfront flying.
Excellent.
Very good.
Sounds like an awesome time.
Yeah, it was great, and my thanks to Armando for kind of putting that all together because it was the aircraft he rented, and we'll be doing hopefully some more of it in the near future.
All right.
What are you holding up to, Jeff?
Well, because we're talking about Armando, can I go next? Or you still have some other stuff to talk about, Steph?
No, that's it. I'm done. Oh
Okay.
yeah, actually, I do have one more thing. I
Okay.
almost forgot. This was like the icing on the cake of this trip because it was a wonderful trip. So we get back to Lincoln County, and we're returning the airplane and back into the flight school or the FBO, and there's a gentleman behind the counter there, and he had a dog with him, and the dog starts going crazy when we come in, just really wants to come out from around behind the counter and come say hi to us and do all the things that dogs do. And he starts yelling at the dog, "Hey, Jake, Jake!" And we're like, "Jake?" He's like, "Yeah, Jake, like from State Farm."
From State Farm.
He actually said that.
She sounds hideous.
I know.
Well, poor guy. So
Yeah. So, but that's what the guy said. He's like, "Yeah, Jake, like
Yeah,
from State
Jake.
Farm."
from State Farm. Not
That's
Jake from
perfect.
Salt Lake, though.
Not Jake from Salt Lake. This is Jake from State Farm.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, I was holding up this on the video. You can see this nice program, and this is the retirement ceremony in honor of Senior Master Sergeant Armando J. Carrion. I was reading that backwards because I'm looking at the video in my screen window, whatever. And I forgot to tell you about this on, I think, the last two shows. This is on the 12th of April. And by the way, Armando has been out there on all kinds of aviation shows. He's really making a big splash out there. The one I just finished listening to yesterday was not the latest Airplane Geeks, but the one before that. He was the special guest. And so I do recommend that you listen to that. And anyway, I flew down to actually over to Raleigh-Durham and then rented a car, drove down to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and attended the retirement ceremony at the U.S. Army Airborne and Special Operations Museum. I have to tell you, though, that kind of confused me because I'm thinking, I thought he was in the Air Force. And why are we doing this in Fayetteville at this U.S. Army Airborne? But I guess maybe the special operations part of it was reason why, because that's what Armando was involved with mostly. Anyway, if you want to hear more about his amazing career in the U.S. Air Force, please listen to that show that starring Armando Carrion.
I thought it was so lovely that Armando went to the trouble of sending me an invitation, even though there was no chance I could possibly get to it.
Well, Captain
really
Nick sent
touched by
him a
that.
very, very nice and entertaining letter.
Yeah, I did send my apologies in the formal way in which I was trained in the Royal Air Force some 40-something years ago.
He was, he had that letter on display in the auditorium where his
Oh, wow, really?
was. Yep. Underneath a bomb.
All right. Well, that
Actually, it
makes
was
lot
a
of
shell. It
sense.
wasn't a bomb. What
All
would
right.
you call that? An artillery shell or something like that?
Yes.
Could be.
Anyway, so we had a great time. The ceremony was great. Brought me back to my military days and all the ritual and pomp and circumstance and everything else. Guys guys and gals looking very sharp in their uniforms, and then of course it was even better after we had a reception over at what was it called? Dirtbag Ales, I think. Dirtbag Brewing.
Dirt Brewery or something. I don't know.
No, it was Dirtbag.
Dirtbag. I think it's Dirtbag.
Okay.
Which
Right.
describes Armando to a T. I have to say. Anyway, just kidding, Armando. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. Right after it happened, it just slipped my mind, as so many things do these days.
We're glad you could be there as our representation.
Yeah.
Sorry the rest of us could not make it, Armando.
Yeah, sorry about that one.
The I think it was it PTUK? Yeah, on PTUK, not the latest one, maybe the one before. We actually Armando we connected us while they were recording their show live. And so I don't know exactly where that is in the timeline of that show, but we were on the show on location in the Dirtbag Brewing company.
I think I've already heard it, so I think that one's out.
I need to look at it and see how embarrassing I was.
You were incredibly embarrassing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
We expect nothing less.
Thank you. All right. Meetups. Had one just day before yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I recorded a little bit of audio at, well, I'm going to try to tell you where. Hey, folks, we're at Anthony G's in, excuse me, take two. We're at some place in some city in Oklahoma. No. Hey, folks, we're at Albert G's Barbecue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And soon we'll be talking to, actually, I'm going to start with this person who helped organize this meetup. Because Larry said, hey, I noticed you're going to be in Tulsa, Jeff, in April, and we should probably do a meetup. And I said, that sounds like a great idea, Larry. Why don't you coordinate that? And so he did, and he did a wonderful job. Now, I first have to tell you that when Brent, my favorite FO, and I were flying into Tulsa today, we pulled up to our gate, and in the window, I could see the sign, and I'm looking at the sign right now. It's here in the special room at Albert G's Barbecue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it says, welcome to Tulsa, Captain Jeff. And I bumped Brent's shoulder and I said, hey, look at that. Look at that. So I got a special sign from Larry. He was standing there taking some video of us pulling into the gate. Anyway, without further ado, let me have Larry say something to the ABG community.
Hi there, community. This is Larry, the geezer. We actually fell a little short of expectations. I wanted to have a water cannon salute and a brass band, and we got the sign up, but the brass band couldn't get through the metal detector. And the fire cannon salute, that didn't work out well, so I was going to meet you with a kazoo and a water pistol. But that couldn't have a gun at the airport, so best I could do is we got actually from Frank Relja, the assistant deputy director of the airport. He gave you the rubber band, so keep that and treasure it. And
I have a photo of it, and I will treasure it always. I'm very impressed with the effort that you made organizing the band, the rubber band.
Best we could do, but we're really pleased to have you here. Hopefully this will be the first of many Tulsa meetups.
I hope so as well. And I'm glad you didn't do the water cannon salute, because I would have thought that it was my surprise retirement party. So I'm glad that you didn't do that.
No, I'm afraid I'm going to miss Captain Nick's retirement. We're planning on going to Atlanta, but the sad thing is I'd have to fly on that other airline with the, American flag on the back.
Well, that's okay. I don't think you'll have to worry about it. I don't think we're going to have one of those parties in Atlanta, sadly. But you never know. We can always hope for a miracle.
No, that's about it for me. But anything we mess up, you can fix in post.
That's what I always say. It's not always true. We are really, really excited about having a celebrity here from the band Journey, Steve Perry.
All right. Well,
he's a lot younger looking than I thought. And you used to have a lot longer hair.
I wasn't quite expecting that introduction, but all right. Yeah. Sorry to disappoint. Yeah. It's just Steve from Tulsa, not Steve Perry from Journey. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Easter to APG crew. Jeff, thanks for being here. Brent and Larry for putting it all together. Thank you very much. And see you next time around.
It was a very nice meeting you, Steve from Tulsa, not Steve Perry from Journey. A little disappointed about that. Next in line is Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh from Tulsa, or from Jenks, I guess, technically. Just saw this on Slack and decided I'd come out, and really appreciate Larry, the geezer, organizing this, and for Jeff and everybody coming out. It's great. I hope, like he said, I hope we do it again.
I do as well. It was a lot of fun. And so here's my first officer, Brent. He's the guy that I always tell you guys about. Our thing is to always go to, or we try to go and get good barbecue, or at least barbecue, every time we lay over somewhere. And, I think we've managed to do that pretty well. We've had really, really good barbecue, and we've had very, very mediocre, barbecue. This is pretty good barbecue here today, I think. What'd you think, Brent?
I thought it was really good. I had the standard. Jeff can tell you what that is.
Yeah, when the waitress came up and said, what would you like?" And I said, I could order for him because I know he's going to say pulled pork, baked beans, and potato salad.
Rectamundo. And it was very good here today.
Although we were in Charleston last night and we went to the Swig and Swine, I think, and you didn't order baked beans, and well, you did order baked beans, but you didn't get potato salad.
That's right. They had corn pudding on the menu, so we gave that a try. It was more corn than it was pudding, but it ate just the same.
But I think you'd agree with me that the barbecue,
Best part.
the dessert, yes. Well,
After we walked 20 minutes to get it.
yeah. Well, we had to walk off some of the calories that we had consumed and we were going to consume at Jenny's ice cream.
Yes, with that salty caramel and gooey butter cake is what I had.
And I had the salty peanut butter with chocolate flecks and something chocolate. Like, I don't know. It's too long ago for me to remember, but I can say without hesitation that the barbecue here at Albert G's beat the Swig and Swine that we had yesterday. And then finally, we have Paul Shelton, and he's going to talk to our community right now.
Hi, this is Paul Shelton. I'm a relative newcomer to the podcast, but I'm totally hooked. Can't wait to listen every week. I'm a former employee of American Airlines / the spinoff Sabre Holdings as a IT guy. And American Airlines, sometimes known as Apex, I guess. I'm sorry, did I just reveal the code?
Ajax.
Apex, Ajax.
I like Apex better.
Okay. Anyway, I'm having a great time here, enjoying the podcast, enjoying the AGP crew. I really love the podcast and having a great time. Glad to finally meet Captain Jeff and his FO and the others here tonight. So having a good time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming out. And that's it. We, as I said, we had a great meetup here in Tulsa. Look forward to doing it again many times in the future. Now, back to you in the studio, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we had a great time. And thank you, Larry, for organizing that and taking all the nice pictures. We have more pictures. I was putting up a few of them on the video. So if you're interested, you can watch the video or you can look in the show notes. I'll put all the photos that Larry took. And he also funded, he picked up the tab for everybody.
Wow, what a great guy.
Yeah. So,
Very
Now,
generous.
which one was he?
he was the one in the middle wearing the hat that you want.
Yeah, I want that hat. That looks like that's just the hat I want.
Captain
That
Nick
is,
has hat envy.
yeah,
Captain Nick also has a very large collection of hats.
yeah,
to
but
begin with.
that would be the pinnacle. That
Yes,
an
yeah.
APG hat, that because that's the only one in the world that is a unique hat.
Mhm.
Yeah. We need to
Hey.
talk to him about maybe getting some made in quantity.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Larry, I'll come. I'll bid. Well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to actually bid it, but I'll try to come to Tulsa if you just do the sign in the window. That was just fantastic. I love that.
He'll
It
come to
was
Tulsa and
pretty
the sign
awesome,
will say,
actually.
"Welcome to Tulsa, Captain Jeff." I
Yeah.
mean, and it'll be crossed out and say Dana.
Dana, if British
That's right.
Airways can land at Edinburgh by mistake, I'm sure you can land at Tulsa.
Well, yeah, we go there. It's a matter of whether I can actually get there anymore.
I wouldn't imagine that would be one of the top of the list of places for people to go. Although I love Tulsa, actually. But
Well, the best thing I can get is flying dog poop out of Hong Kong on a 172 these days. So I don't have much choice on what I can fly.
It's a
I haven't done
difficult
that
job
one
in a
yet.
172.
Oh, anyway.
Well, at the rate of the increase of the parking of our lovely bird, it may not be long before I'm not even on it anymore. Anyway, it's just found out some
Yeah.
interesting information. So
We're hanging on, though. We're hanging on.
hanging on for now.
Yeah. So this next trip I do next week, I believe it's on, I think it's Monday. the 29th of April at Q39. Go ahead and have Tom tell us quickly about that.
Hello, APG community. This is Tom from Columbia, Missouri, and I'm letting you know that we are coordinating a meetup with Captain Jeff on Monday, April 29th. It's going to take place at Q39 in Westport. The address is 1000 West 39th Street in Kansas City. That is in the Westport area. Captain Jeff will be coming into town that afternoon, and we will have a start time of 5:30. I have posted this information in Slack under the meetup section. I've also included my phone number in there if you would like to contact me that way. We hope to see you there, and I would appreciate if you would let me know if you can make it so we can save you a seat. Captain Jeff, we're looking forward to hosting you again in Kansas City. We're glad you're coming out to visit us, and we look forward to it once again on April 29th, Monday at 5:30 at Q39. Hope to see you all there. APG crew, thanks for all you do, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tom. Look forward to meeting up with you again and others in Kansas City in just a few days. So there you go. And if you want to keep track of where the crew is and where we have meetups planned, please find the APG community calendar on the APG website and or Slack. And at the end of the show, we'll have Hillel tell you how you can join our Slack team. And thank you, Steph.
Sorry, you weren't supposed to be distracted by that.
We have some back channel chat, and Steph decided that she'd take a picture of herself, a selfie.
It really went to other people, but I thought you guys would enjoy it as well.
It's a very nice photo of you.
Yes,
Steph.
thank you.
We're enjoying that, including the local guests that I have in the room.
Steph is sticking her
You're
tongue
welcome.
out
You're
at
welcome.
somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I really did try to ignore that, but I couldn't help it.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh no, it was good. It was good. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to postpone the coffee fund segment, and we're going to put that between news and feedback if I remember, or if the producer remembers to remind me of it. And we're going to move right on now. Unless anybody has anything else to add for the intro, let's move on to news. Y'all ready?
Ready.
You
Aim
bet.
fire.
Stand by for news.
All right, let's start with the first item in our news folder, and this was an incident that occurred in Berlin, I believe. A German government jet took off. I guess they had some maintenance work done on the Bombardier Global 5000 jet, and it had been there for several weeks of maintenance. And I guess they were doing a test flight. And as soon as they got airborne, the pilots reported serious flight control issues. And let's see, they reached 6,000 meters, which is about 20,000 feet. And they came back in to land the jet. And there are several photos. If you haven't already seen them, we'll put them in our show notes. But you can see very close to the ground this Bombardier Global 5000 in about 50, 60 degrees of bank or so. Right and left, and they actually, in one of these photos, it looks like about at least 60 degrees of bank, and only about 100 feet off the ground, something like that, maybe not even that. And they said that they finally got it on the ground, and apparently the airplane suffered considerable structural damage, buckling and compression damage on both wings, and also on the fuselage itself. And the investigators have tentatively pointed the blame at incorrect adjustment of wing flaps. And I put in there, I don't think that's really what they mean. used for both braking and flight control. So I'm assuming what they're really talking about are the spoilers. And Bombardier calls them multifunction spoilers. They have 4 panels on each wing. And if you look at least one of those photos, the first one that I see there, the right wing, you can see the flight spoilers are pretty much fully extended, and it's in a pretty steep right bank. And you'll also notice that the rudder is like full deflection to the left. So I think that's the attempt, the pilot's attempt to keep the airplane from rolling any more than it's doing in this photo. So
Yeah, that photo they're quite close to the ground, apparently.
yes,
I mean,
very close to the
much
ground.
closer than 100 feet.
Yeah, in that case, yeah, that was maybe what, 30 feet
Yeah,
or
if
something like
that.
that.
They're very close to the
Yeah,
ground.
it looks like he's about to take out that pole that's right on the edge of the runway there. That looks terrifying, quite honestly, and to have that level of control handling problems, I have to take my hat off to the crew for getting it down in one piece, albeit damaged, and at least everyone was safe. Geez, it sounds like a really nasty incident.
I'm wondering if this is another case, and we've been seeing these quite a bit lately, it seems, where they did some maintenance work to the flight control system and maybe they like reverse connected everything. I don't know.
I would hope not,
Yeah.
because these systems, we should have learned by now that these systems need to be absolutely foolproof in the fact that it's impossible. You make it impossible to misconnect in the wrong sense, the flight controls, by making all the connectors not fit. We've learned that, I would hope, decades ago. But so
I guess not.
Yeah, exactly. I guess not.
Because
Let's hope
it was
wasn't that.
it was an Embraer 190, I believe, in Portugal that they were on a test flight, and I don't know how they got the darn thing on the ground, but they somehow managed not to crash the jet. And in that case, I think the ailerons were misrigged, and so when they put in a right wing deflection or a right wing turn in the control, it actually did the opposite. And that, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to get that in your brain that, oh, everything is backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's what happened here, but apparently they're looking at the.
Now, Logan in the chat room asks, wouldn't you notice that on flight checks or flight control check before taxi? So in small aircraft, you can look out and see what you're actually doing to the aileron and the rudder and the elevator when you move the flight controls. However, in a larger jet, go ahead.
I don't know. I've never been on the Bombardier 5000 Global, but it's a pretty swept back wing and it's pretty far back. And I'm thinking that you can't see the flight control surfaces from the cockpit, but I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of instrumentation that would indicate. Yeah.
If it's anything like the CRJ 200, 700, and 900, which is
Probably
made
is.
by the same company,
Yeah.
they do have the flight ICAS system where you can actually see the position of the controls when you select through the screens. So when you do your flight control test, you can actually select that screen and see the positions that they're matching your positions that you're commanding.
Is that a requirement to do that? When you're doing your
At
flight
the
control
airlines,
check?
yeah. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to do a flight control check. I don't know if
Right.
in the corporate world, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Especially if you're going to be doing a test flight, you'd certainly want to make sure that everything was connected properly. The other question I have about that, Dana, is, what is that sensing, that ICAS thing? Is it actually sensing the real control movement or just what the input is to those? I don't know. Probably the real control movement.
It's actually it's going to be squat switches, hat switches, I believe. So it's going to be the actual position of the controls. And actually, I just had an expert that just walked in the room that actually flew the RJ as well. And let me ask him the question. He didn't hear it.
Okay.
Do you remember? Because we're talking about the Bombardier 5000, which is a very similar cockpit. It's a similar airplane to what we flew with the 200, 700, 900. Do you remember when you did a flight control test? You know how you go to that page and it would show you the positions of the flight controls? Do you know if that was the actual position of the flight control or just an indication of where you were putting the flight control wheel or rudders?
I think it was the actual position because it actually had the number.
That would make sense. Actually.
Yeah, it was the actual position because it gave us the number. So
I'm just wondering if you can misconnect the actual control surface. Can you also misconnect the indicators so that you're getting a reading from the wrong control surface? But,
maybe possibly. I mean, anything with computer generated display certainly.
Yeah.
Nothing could go wrong.
Yeah,
nothing could
at
go
all.
wrong. Nothing could go wrong. Okay, interesting. Anything to?
And Ken said we fly the best. We fly by wire on the 88 by
We do
real wire,
3/8" stainless steel
yeah,
wire.
because there's no way you could possibly misconnect a wire.
Yeah, no
is
way.
there? No, that's never happened.
Never,
in the whole
definitely never
history.
happened.
No,
Come on.
no,
Stop
that's
it.
no.
All right, moving on. This next jet or next story, excuse me. I think Steph, because apparently she's pretty bored with what we're doing here today, I'm going to have her read this one.
Not bored at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So this is the
Cirrus.
flyingmag.com. FAA grounds all Cirrus Vision jets over angle of attack issues. So the entire, and this was written by Rob Mark. I'm sure most folks listening know who he is. This was published.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. I don't know who he is.
Rob
So,
Mark, he's from the Airplane
former
Geeks.
contributor to
Former
the
host.
Airplane Geek.
Yeah.
Yeah, former host of the Airplane Geeks. I'm sorry you've been living under a rock, Captain Nick.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. But anyway, he says the entire Cirrus SF-50 Vision fleet of 70 plus aircraft is grounded until further notice. The FAA on Thursday issued an emergency airworthiness directive. That was last Thursday, I believe. Against the Cirrus Vision jet that grounds the entire fleet until specified maintenance is performed on the aircraft's angle of attack indicators. The airworthiness directive was prompted by 3 incidents in the Cirrus model SF-50 airplanes of the stall warning and protection system, SWPS, or electronic stability and protection, ESP system, engaging when not appropriate, with the first incident occurring in November and the latest this month. The agency said, the noted condition presents an immediate danger to pilots and passengers of Cirrus Design Corporation Model SF-50 airplanes because an uncommanded pitch down may be difficult to recover from in some flight regimes with potentially fatal consequences. The before further flight compliance time and need to replace the angle of attack sensors due to the potentially fatal consequences does not allow for prior notice and opportunity to comment for the public. The AD explained that these systems may engage even when sufficient airspeed and proper angle of attack exists for normal flight. The SWPS, which is the stall warning and protection system, includes the stall warning alarm, stick shaker, and stick pusher. This is the Garmin designed ESP, includes underspeed protection, and the SWPS system engaging inappropriately could potentially result in a stall warning crew alert message activation, accompanied by an audio alarm and stick shaker activation, followed possibly by either low speed ESP or USP, the underspeed protection, engaging and or stick pusher engaging. The pilot will also observe the dynamic and color-coded parentheses, red airspeed awareness ranges displaying the stall band regardless of actual indicated airspeed. So this sounds oddly familiar.
A little familiar to me.
Yeah, I mean, and Ken brought up the point. He just doesn't want to bring it up and talk himself, but he said he wonders if it's anything related to the same company that designed the airplanes, the 737-800 Max system.
Maybe it is. I don't know for sure.
So one of the systems on the Cirrus is a Garmin design system. That's the ESP, which stands for electronic stability and protection, and that's what includes that underspeed protection. But I'm not sure who designs the other system. Did it say the stall warning?
It didn't say in the
system?
article.
Yeah, I would think that would be Cirrus designed. But
Do you think?
It just sounds very oddly
Yeah.
similar.
Well,
I mean-
is it possible the FAA are just being hypersensitive about these occurrences now? So they look at perhaps trolling through past reports are suddenly going, whoa, we don't want to have 2 of these that might implicate a certain lack of attention. So they're just coming down real hard on anything that even resembles the 7.3 problem.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility, certainly.
I think the FAA's got it so bad they're using preparation H and everything now.
Now, the other thing, on a serious note, I have to agree with you there, Dana, but on a more serious note, did I read, and someone will have to confirm this, that Boeing outsourced the software for the MCAS system, or did they write it in-house? Question mark. Does
I don't
anyone
know the answer to that question.
I don't know the
I had
answer.
not seen that.
I had not either.
Thus the validity of Ken's question.
Yeah, that's the reason why I think there is a chance that these two might be linked, but I don't know if they did outsource or not. But I have a vague memory at the back of my head that I might have read that it wasn't necessarily, it was a Boeing subcontractor, or might have been a Boeing subcontractor that did some of the software work there.
Well, the common denominator between this issue on the Cirrus SF-50 Vision jet and the Boeing 73 MAX 8 and 9 and Air France, what was it again?
447? Is that what
Yeah. That the thing that initiated, at least, well, we don't have any crashes from the Vision jet, but at least the MAX 8 and the Airbus 330 all started with an AOA. Actually, there was an AOA on the Air France. It was an airspeed indicator. Never mind.
Yeah,
a little bit
It's one of
different
the
in Air
little
France.
things out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PETO system, right? Is that correct, Nick? PETO system?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then never
right
mind.
again.
Disregard that.
He doesn't want to talk, but he was right yet again. That was Ken talking.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ken.
He said
good to not see you.
He said happy to be here. I don't know if you heard him.
All right. Hey, I thought this one was interesting. A fatal plane crash in a Northern California Norco prison yard involved one-of-a-kind plane from Chino.
Norco is a brand name of a narcotic pain medication here in the United States. So that's sorry. That has nothing to do with this, but
so that's probably not exactly why they named the prison Norco.
it's
though, right?
Northern California.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But it says Norco. I don't know what that means. Anyway, there was
Is
a
it the name of the town? Might be the name of the town.
Good questions you have there.
Okay.
Don't know the answer. Anyway, the point of this is that this is a one-of-a-kind airplane. I think they made 4 of these scale model flying wing airplanes. Northrop did back in the, I believe it was.
Doesn't that make it 4 of a kind?
Yeah. 1 of 4 of a kind. Yeah, it's a 4 of a kind airplane, but this is only it was the last one remaining of the 4 that were built. And
that's true.
And there are no more because this one crashed and it took off out of the Chino airport and it was being piloted by one of the museum. The museum is the, what do they call that? Darn. Trying to find
The
that.
Planes of Fame Air
Planes
Museum.
of Fame, yes. One of the pilots from the Planes of Fame Air Museum in Chino was out flying the airplane, I guess practicing for an upcoming air show, I think in the beginning of May, and flying this flying wing, and it crashed, and we're not sure, we don't really have details of what happened, if it was an engine failure or whatever happened to the darn thing. But that airplane was basically the predecessor of, Northrop was contracted with building a bomber, I think it was called the B-35. And then, of course, we know in now our time, the flying wing bomber, the B-2. It's all part of the lineage of the development of the flying wing airplane. And looks like the pilot, the museum pilot, was the sole occupant and died in the crash. So I'll put, go ahead.
That's incredibly sad. I mean, it's just a remarkable piece of history that I don't know how many B-35s are still kicking around. It never really got to the B-35, did it? It was the YB-35. So it means prototype version.
Right.
And I believe there are some that are kicking around museums, certainly none flying, but it was a fantastic, had great potential. Carried a pretty impressive bomb load and would have gone around 10,000 miles. because of the unique design. A remarkable piece of kit. Just so sad that this bit of history has now been destroyed, and of course, the loss of life is tragic.
I was interested reading some of this from Wikipedia regarding the N9M, the Northrop flying wing that crashed here. Was partially constructed of wood to reduce its overall weight. The wing's outer surfaces were also skinned with a strong, specially laminated plywood. The central section, roughly equivalent to the fuselage, was made of welded tubular steel. And I guess the first scale models with the 60-foot or 18-meter wingspan were powered by 290 horsepower Manasco C6S1 Buccaneer in inverted air-cooled straight six engines. And this one was powered by two 300 horsepower Franklin XO547 engines. Never heard of either of those companies, but I'm not, probably long gone, right?
Yeah, no longer exists. 50 years ago.
Anyway, it's a shame. We'll include all this in the show notes for you to take a look at. I've also included a video on YouTube of this airplane in an air show in 2017. Some pretty good video of this thing flying around. Pretty cool airplane.
Of course, the tragic thing, it brings up the debate about whether these aircraft, when you get down to the final one, should you be allowed to fly them? So, should they, because you can build a replica, but it'll never be the same airplane again. And the great danger of flying them is, of course, exactly this will happen. And when it goes, it goes. That's it. It's the last one ever gone. Yeah. Damn.
The way of the dodo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd have very heated arguments on both sides of that.
Oh, sure. Absolutely impossible to resolve. But the sad fact is that now we have lost that, and that link has already gone for good.
That is. This next one is interesting. I would play the audio of this, but I do not understand Spanish. Probably a minority of our audience does. So this took place in Buenos Aires, I think.
Yep, in their airspace anyway.
Yeah, in their airspace. And let's see, VAS Aviation has the audio of a heated exchange between a pilot and an air traffic controller in Argentina. Oh, okay, Argentina. Yeah, okay. What happened? An Avianca Argentina ATR 72 and an Austral Embraer 190 passed just a few hundred feet apart when flying in the airspace over Buenos Aires. Now, I'd note that often there's, and this is from 1mileatatime.com, a blog. He says, I'd note that often there's unnecessary media hype about planes not having proper separation because planes may appear close. The reality is that in a vast majority of situations, this is a non-issue because the planes are separated by at least 1,000 feet, and that's a normal procedure. However, in this instance, it sure seems like maybe things weren't going as planned, or at least that's what the pilot seems to think. So while the communications are in Spanish, here's what goes down after the two planes pass close to one another. And he said this is roughly translated. Pilot, and I listened to it and I could hear the different pilot voices are different airplanes. So I'm going to say pilot one.
I think you should do it. You should have two different people read it here. So you can
Okay.
have
I'll be pilot one, and Steph, I want you to be the air traffic controller.
Sure.
And
I'll be pilot two.
Okay. Pilot one. We had around 500 feet to 300 feet at some points of separation with that traffic that passed right above us from right to left.
Yes, that's correct, sir. You are absolutely right. If you need to file a report, do it. It's due to the congestion that we have in this sector and the job at the moment.
The truth is that you are all incompetent. That's the problem.
Yeah? Come tell me in person, eh? Please. Idiot.
That's you again. Idiot.
I know. I felt like there should be a pause there.
Okay. A dramatic pause. Idiot.
Idiot.
Wait a minute.
I can just imagine the conversations going on in the cockpit too.
Oh man. Yeah. So my question is, and in the VAS Aviation playback of this, it actually shows the radar data, and I only saw about 500 feet, but it's still pretty close. There was less than 1,000 feet separation. But I'm wondering, did anybody get a TCAS advisory or an RA? It doesn't mention it at all in this.
Who's to say they're required to have it there?
Maybe they aren't. Good point.
I would think that
Thought they did, though.
I thought they did, and I'm wondering if this happened after that happened, perhaps.
Possibly.
I mean, I'm sure it didn't have this conversation did not happen in real time as they had that lack of separation incident,
Yeah. I don't know what happened there.
but shortly
it was
after. Who knows?
interesting, though, that they're kind of having words with each other, calling the one pilot, calling the controller incompetent. No, not only the one controller, all the air traffic
You're all
controllers.
incompetent.
You're all,
You're all
incompetent. Okay. Anyway,
And how they'd say in the South be all you all.
all y'alls.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we have the YouTube link there. You can listen to it and watch it yourself. So there. Oh, wait a minute. I need to do something here.
Boy, I butchered the hell out of that all y'all thing.
No, you didn't. That was good. Love to hear that with your accent.
With my Boston accent.
Ah, that's the wrong one. Oh, well, that'll work. So we hear the drone music in the background. And the reason why we're playing that is that the FAA certifies Google's Wing drone delivery company to operate as an airline. Actually, it's Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, the Wing Aviation to operate as an airline. It's a first for U.S. drone delivery companies. Wing, which began as Google X project, has been testing its autonomous drones in Southwest Virginia and elsewhere. And so they actually got certified to operate. I guess they're doing their test bed is in Southwestern Virginia, I believe they said here in the article. Trying to find the exact quote from this article, which is from npr.org. And they have a video in there showing one of these actually Wing drones flying over somebody's house and lowering a little package. Looks like the one that Wing Airlines, or is that what they call them? Wing Air Service, Wing Aviation. There we go. Can carry 1.5 kilograms or 3.3 pounds. And they're meant to deliver a wide range of everyday items from food and drinks to medicine and emergency supplies. That also talks about in the article, as early as 2013, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos predicted that the online retail giant's octocopter drones would start buzzing out of fulfillment centers in the coming years. And their version of the delivery drone to be built to carry around 5 pounds, a weight limit that would allow about 85% of the products sold by Amazon to be delivered by drone. Anyway, I don't know. What do y'all think? Is this a good idea, this drone delivery thing? And even if it's a good idea, and I know that there are some cases that it really does make a lot of sense. I think we've talked about it before, Steph, where, some places that it's hard to get needed and urgent medical supplies and that
Sure,
kind of thing.
things like that. Remote medical supplies. I think it's a good idea. I know we were talking about one. I think it was in Raleigh somewhere, wasn't it? Wake Forest
I think so.
Hospital, and they were going to be delivering supply or like lab samples between the hospital and the lab more directly with use of drones.
I'm
But
just wondering about the economics of.
I was going to say the efficiencies of it, because it can only carry one package at a time, realistically. So it would have to go out to the location, fly back, go out to another location, fly back, out. I mean, even if it's a high speed drone, it's going to take several trips, and maybe you can't do that many trips per day. I can see where it would be even beneficial for remote regions where you can't get in necessarily because you don't have roads. But I think a delivery truck would be more efficient because it can hold a whole lot more instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all day.
The last two articles here, I think, are telling. In addition to Google and Amazon, delivery companies such as United Parcel Service and DHL Express also have been developing their own drone systems. And like many human endeavors, that rely on technology, A main hurdle has been a relatively simple constraint, battery life. And here's a quote from the CEO of DHL parent Deutsche Post AG, told the Associated Press last December, quote, "If you have to recharge them every other hour, then you need so many drones and you have to orchestrate that. So good luck with that." I love
It's a
that.
great quote.
So
Very
good luck with
eloquent.
that.
Eloquent.
Yeah, it's going to be complicated, but I can only see it working if you're either living 30 minutes from a big depot, because otherwise, you'll order something and they won't have it at the local depot that's 30 minutes away, and rather defeats the object. However, having said that, 85% of the products sold by Amazon could be delivered by drone. They'd be of the correct weight. But you're right. You've got the complication of getting it to you and getting it back again. I can just see the sale of anti-aircraft guns going up enormously, so that you could pick these off as they leave the the warehouse and then run away with the contents, because that could be quite lucrative.
No, I think Dana's absolutely right, though. I'm just thinking of, I know myself and many of my neighbors frequently order things from Amazon Prime, so things are being delivered within a day or two to our homes. But it's one delivery driver with all of these packages or all these parcels for all of these different homes, and one driver can make multiple stops in one trip. They don't have to keep going back every time they need to get another package to drop off.
And it's two comments on that, Nick. Number one, anti-aircraft artillery in the South is called a shotgun. And number two, it's how many people behind the scenes you have flying these drones to be able to fly. I mean, are they completely autonomous where they'll just go ahead and automatically fly themselves?
They'll be completely autonomous. And I don't know if a shotgun's going to take it up 400 feet. Looking at this example at the top there, with the one with all the propellers along the fuselage, a lot of the electronics seem to be mounted externally, which worries me a little bit. But I mean, if you're going to get this kind of service, you're going to pay a premium for it, which case, you want it within 30 minutes and you don't care whether the van is going to carry 40 packages or 50 packages. You want it individually delivered right now. And I can see that being a service some people might want.
Yeah, like a premium service.
Well, yeah, partly that, but it's not expensive. And once you've got the drone, you just have to put a new battery in it and whack it off. An hour later, it comes back and you can do another delivery.
What did you say?
I don't know. What did you say?
I was speaking English.
That's what she said.
And send it off.
Okay.
You guys just missed what Nick just said. He was talking about
send it off. Sure.
You Yanks are so easily amused. It's
Yanks?
terrifying.
What? Come on, stop it, Nick. You're killing us.
Yeah. Good luck getting those drones to
All right, we're all
when I
chuckling here.
pay for my extra premium Amazon drone delivery service, and then they won't be able to get it to my house for all the trees that surround my house.
You can pay for the extra whacking off service?
You'll just have to get it off the roof.
They'll just drop it in the lake.
Yeah.
I'll have to swim for it.
Floats on it.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Okay. Finally, I can sense it's time for us to move off that subject and on to this one, which it's kind of a sad way to end our news segment. A Beechcraft B-60 Duke took off from Fullerton Airport, looks like quite early in the morning, and crashed after a failed takeoff attempt. And the thing that's interesting about this is that there is very clear video of the airplane taking off and crashing. And I don't know, did you have a chance to look at it, any of you?
Yeah, I've watched it. It's dramatic and sad.
Does it look like seems like the only thing that would cause that maybe is either just taking off too
well, I'm thinking he lost power or significant power on one engine and was not above that minimum control speed for multi-engine aircraft.
Yeah, or put the wrong rudder in after losing the engine.
Right. That would never happen.
No.
Yeah, sadly, we see that quite often.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I think, nobody reminded me, but I remembered, which is amazing, I think. Let's go on to talk about our coffee fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea.
I love the APG
Community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. All right. The Coffee Fund is your way, dear listener, for you to support the show financially if you have the financial resources to do so. So if you need your money for food and shelter and clothing and flight lessons, just ignore what I'm saying here. But if you want to be part of that group, that great group of folks who are part of our Coffee Fund cadre, you can learn about how to do that by heading over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. And since the last episode, we have a couple of classic fund contributors, Randy Ward and Carl Lake, along with recurring donations from Jeff and Anissa, Terry, Chris, and David. Again, that's the Coffee Fund Classic method. We also have Patreon. You can become a patron of the show. And we have a new producer, Christian Bass, and a new executive producer. And that's Ryan Hallivan. And so, yeah, if you want to be part of this August group, or in this case, April group, please head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad that you did. And so will we.
Captain, incoming message.
You know, at first I thought I pushed the wrong button because I'm not used to hearing that bumper right after the Coffee Fund
It
music.
just sounds wrong.
Yeah, it does.
It's like when you have a music playlist all set up and like one of those songs comes on the radio and you're expecting the next song to be the next song in the playlist and it's
right,
not.
and it's not. And you go, what? What's going on? Yeah, I have it on, what do they call it? Shuffle instead of sequential. How we doing? You want to take a break, anybody, before we move on with our feedback?
No, but Dana's been sending some messages.
Okay.
I've been trying to suggest some maybe doing plain tails.
Pardon me?
I suggest some maybe doing plain tails. That way we can do a break and do that, but that's up to you.
Well, how do you feel about that, Nick? Would it be okay for us to run the plain tails at this point? Nick's already on his break.
He's already on the break. He's gone.
I'll tell you what, I'll move it up a little bit, but let's start off with here he is. He's back.
Here I am, sir. Is there a problem?
No, we were just wondering. I was asking how everybody was doing as far as taking a break, and
I just had, thanks.
Yeah,
We noticed.
We figured that out because you weren't answering us when we were asking you questions.
Well, you did the coffee bar. I'm sorry. I did.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Nope.
Okay.
Ain't no big deal. We were wondering, or Dana was wondering if we could play the plain tale right off the bat.
Oh, I don't mind. It's your show, Jeff.
Yeah, it's all our show.
Well, it
Okay.
sounded like Dana and crew were going to head out for dinner. Would you rather answer some feedback with us real quick, or you have
Sure.
time
I
for
mean,
that?
I can
Okay.
hang out for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Why don't we do a few pieces of feedback, and then you can listen to the plain tale at a later date.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Let's start with Robert from Marietta, also known as Mayretta. He says, I'm waiting for permission from my friend who just joined Delta Airlines to share more photos from their graduation on social media, but I'm sending this over in case I forget. Okay, so this is from a new Delta flight attendant. Okay, one more. Now, I don't know who he's writing this to. Is this on social media, I guess? So I guess it's to...
This looks like an Instagram post, just based on
Instagram.
the way the hashtags were written at the bottom. And I'm not
Oh.
sure, was this Robert or Robert's friend? This is Robert's friend.
This is
correct?
Robert's friend. Yeah.
Okay.
Robert. Yeah. I did not make that clear. A friend of Robert's. Robert is not an employee of Delta, but I guess one of his friends ended up getting hired by Delta, which is a very similar company to Acme Airlines, the airline that Dana and I fly for. Okay. So here we go. Here's the flight attendant's voice. Well, not exactly. It's my voice, but this is the flight attendant talking. Okay, one more important post about my new career. Today marked my first ever trip as a flight attendant. I had an amazing crew, great passengers, experienced a ton in just 2 flights, successfully ran 2 meal services, and assisted in the back as well, answered customer questions with knowledge and assurance, dealt with customer concerns, and honored our values, received customer compliments in flight before they even knew it was my very first ever trip, and then they were even more amazed. Had plenty of kids to keep an eye on and anxious parents to soothe, and a humbling moment with a family traveling home with their deceased loved one below being carried home. Overall, I went in confident and proud, and I walked away knowing that this job is stressful but energizing, humbling, and rewarding. Not just a job, but a lifestyle. But more importantly, that this is my new home and family. I made the right choice in choosing this as my career. From 200,000 plus applicants, 1,950 were chosen. So I'm proud to be part of this amazing company, family, and team, and that something inside of me and who I am made me stand out from hundreds of thousands of other people. Without my Delta family, Ashley, Sebastian, Craig, Jim, Joe, Randy, and Boban, I wouldn't have been as confident and strong throughout the application process, training, and everything in between. From hugs to frantic texts to care packages and everything in between, y'all mean the world to me. Without my instructors, Brett and Todd, putting up with my oddly specific questions and chatting their ear off about planes and the industry, I wouldn't have made it out of training with a 100% average and walked onto the line today feeling more prepared than I ever could have imagined for any situation that could happen to me. So thank you for supporting me and being pillars on my journey to success. I'm so happy to be part of the Delta family. That's really great to hear. People so excited about starting a career in the airline industry. In this case, not in-flight operations or being a flight attendant.
I'd like to see your letter in a year from now.
I left out the part, Dana, talking about the pilots.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
There's
except for
already
this part.
the complaints are already pouring in about the pilots.
Anyway, so it's just neat to see, whatever job field it is, to see a young person so excited about their new job and the future that they have in it, and being excited. But as you said, Dana, I hope that enthusiasm stays with this person.
Yeah, I think it's building those good experiences early. So
Yeah,
hopefully lots more of those to come.
We can just ask Stephen Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
He can relate.
Yeah. Okay. Alan, not Captain Al, because he spells it like Captain Al, wrote in and said, "Hello, APG crew. The non-Captain Al here with a quick update and related question for you. As you can see, I made it safely back from my trip to India, overcoming some last-minute fear, which nearly scuppered me getting on the plane. Overall, the flights were great, and I found it quite helpful with my phobia to imagine the plane being piloted by your good selves, with Dr. Steph sitting calmly alongside in the cabin, holding my hand and whispering sweet nothings in my ear." No, I'm adding that stuff. Sorry. He did not say that.
No.
But he did say, with Dr. Steph sitting calmly alongside in the cabin. That said, there were 2 incidents that really frayed my nerves. The first was on the second leg of the flight out to India when, not long after we departed, a member of the cabin crew opened one of the food heaters at the back, which had apparently been left on or otherwise set incorrectly. Dan and I have smelled that smell before. I obviously only found out that this is what happened after the event, so it was indeed quite nerve-wracking to have found myself engulfed with steam, smoke, and the smell of burning. The trip back was largely uneventful until we were midway home. I was sitting near the front of the wing, and suddenly the cabin crew all came running up in the area I was sitting in. I couldn't tell what was happening, and I heard someone say smoke. Being near the wing and therefore the engine, I, of course, instantly jumped to the worst case scenario and imagined plumes of smoke pouring from the plane. But no, it was the alarm going off in the toilet where a passenger was smoking. The rest of the flight was smooth as silk, and overall the trip was a once in a lifetime experience, which listening to your show helped me to take part in. The question I do now have, though, is this. In the instances like what I faced, how aware are the flight crew? I assume when any smoke alarm goes off, you're aware of that, regardless of where on the plane? I'm not sure if the incident with the food burning would have triggered an alarm too, but I'd have thought so, judging from the steam and the smoke. When something like that does happen, I guess I'm just curious as to what the steps you take up at the front of the plane, where I guess you can't leave the cockpit in case it was someone using the smoke or the smoking as an attempt to get on the flight deck. Once again, thank you for a great show and for keeping me company on many of the miles of sky between Manchester and New Delhi, then back again. Alan. So, let's start with Dana, since he's still here with us and has a fellow Mad Dog pilot with him. So, would the smoke detector activating in the lavatory necessarily be something that you would know anything about, Dana?
No, actually, the smoke detectors on our aircraft are very similar to the smoke detectors that you would have in your house, which would make a local alarm where the flight attendants would be notified. They would actually hear it. But we don't have any indication in the flight deck at all that a smoke detector is being activated in the lavatory. As a matter of fact, if there's actually a fire in the lavatory, in the garbage bin, for more specific, there is a canister in there that will once it reaches a certain temperature, there's a plug in there that will melt and disperse the fire extinguishing agent self on its own. So it's really almost like a hands-off system. So that's why you don't ever smoke in the lavatory, because it's going to make it's going to become embarrassing. But I really liked his. He's very much in tune to the fact that the flight attendants were there, and procedures that might be involved there. So it's really all there is on our aircraft, I think, Jeff.
Yes, we do not have any kind of a system that gives us any kind of an indication on our jet. I'm sure that on the Airbus that Captain Nick flies, there may be some kind of a notification of smoke alarms.
Oh yes, Jeff. If any of the toilet smoke alarms go off, we get all the fire bells going off in the front, and smoke indication where it's coming from. So we know, and obviously that for very good reasons, we can start considering initiating diversion. Until, of course, we find out from the cabin crew how serious it is and whether they've dealt with the problem or not. It might be simple enough for just to lock off the toilet, having dealt with the fire, lock off the toilet, and we can carry on with one US toilet. But yeah, we certainly find out about it. If we get a bad oven fire, and to be fair, in the 25 years I've flying, I've seen cabin crew put on the ovens to warm them up, and people have left their work handbags in there, their shoes in there, their hats, their jackets, because sometimes they're just too busy to find somewhere to put this stuff. They get on the aircraft for a bit of a rush, and they've got to swap over their work shoes for their strutting around the airport shoes, and they just toss them into a convenient place, which might be an oven, thinking, well, as soon as we get everyone, I'll take them out. And then, of course, somebody else thinks, I'll preheat all the ovens for the meal service. And off goes somebody's handbag and gets wrecked. So we have a few cases like that, but everyone has a bit of a laugh about that afterwards. But it can be a bit dramatic for the
it's not uncommon.
Passengers. No, it's not uncommon at all.
It's not uncommon on our jet. We have the only oven on the Mad Dog, at least now in the current configuration that we use, is up in the front. And I can't tell you how many times you're flying along and you start to smell something and you're kind of looking around like, okay, what's that? And then you finally dawns on you that somebody has heated up the oven and possibly left something inside of it. My favorite story, though, is we have some very, very senior flight attendants, and one of these, not young herself, was telling us a story of I think it was the number one flight attendant on the seniority list, and she was in her mid 80s, I think. And she had a way of being forgetful about things, and this was before we went to our cashless system. at Acme. So it used to be where people could pay for drinks and other items with cash. And she was the onboard leader, the A-line, the lead flight attendant, purser, whatever you want to call her. And she had taken all this cash throughout the trip. And they carry all this stuff with them until the very end of the trip, and then they turn it in through some kind of a system. That was back in that day anyway. And so they were in flight, and all of a sudden smoke just started pouring from one of the ovens on the airplane. And they were going, what is that? What is going on? They opened it up, and it was just like a big giant pile of cash that was on fire inside the oven.
Uh-oh.
And you bust out the fire extinguisher, or just
Yeah, I think it pretty much burnt all the
Probably
money.
a bit late. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's one way to get rid of the discrepancy in the bar sales.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I do remember on one flight, we're heading off to Tokyo, and we reported the fact that we could hear an emergency locator beacon. And it's common for us to do that. People set them off by accident, or it might actually be a real emergency. And we tell air traffic control when we start hearing them, so that enough aircraft report, they can sort of triangulate where the emergency beacon might be coming from, that sort of thing. Anyway, we reported, and we were heading into Russian airspace where you change controllers frequently, and we must have reported this beacon to about 10 different controllers, because it went on like for hour after hour after hour, and I'm going, this is ridiculous. Where
Following
the
us.
hell is this beacon coming from? So I actually went on my break, and as is common, I often walk around the airplane and just have a quick chat with the crews to say, and I know we've got two of the big locator beacons that you take off the aircraft if you ditch. And they're big, like 48-hour beacons. They float in water, big aerials, so that if you ditch, or if you can go on land, come to that, you can set these up, and they can come find you. And I know there's one at the front, one at the back, and I wandered around, and I happened to just open the panel and look in at the one at the back, just out of curiosity, and there was a handbag stuffed down there. And someone has stuffed their handbag in on top of this beacon. And the way this particular beacon activated was that you released the aerial, which flipped up. And as soon as it did, a micro switch opened and the beacon went off. And they'd managed to partly release the aerial. And it hadn't completely deployed, but it started off the beacon. And we were reporting our own damn beacon. But like
very, very strong signal.
Yeah, that's right. 6 hours. We have this beacon's chasing us. Where's it coming from? I thought that was so funny. Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. Well, that was a great question, Alan. I'm glad that. Well, I'm not glad that you have anxiety for flying, but it looks like you're getting better, and I'm glad that we are here to kind of help you alleviate some of the fear and anxiety by gaining some knowledge of what's going on in our careers. And do let us know how that goes in the future. And it was a great question.
Jeff, I did forget to mention one thing.
Yeah.
The smell of that oven when it's on right behind us
Mhm.
can either be very disgusting, like turns the taste buds off,
Mhm.
or if somebody brings something from home and turns that oven on right behind us, and you haven't had anything to eat in
Mhm.
several hours, and it smells delicious. Next thing you know, you're salivating and finding it very hard to concentrate on doing anything else other than thinking about eating.
I've always thought it was interesting, Dana. I don't know if you feel the same way, but most of the flights that Dana and I fly are not meal service flights. Very few and far between, and only certain markets like Boston and New York
Portland.
and Portland. Yeah.
El Paso.
But so I'd say like 98% of the flights that we fly on the Mad Dog at Acme are not meal flights. And so when you do smell something cooking in the oven, you're thinking, huh? What is that? And then you think, oh, okay, well, obviously that's something that the flight attendant is heating up. And I've always thought that it's kind of, to me, it almost seems kind of rude, because everybody in first class, at least, maybe even further back, can probably smell
They're going Yeah, we're
and
getting
they're going, wow, that, everybody's stomachs are going, like, ooh,
Mhm.
that sounds good. That smells good. I wonder what we're going to get served. And then they see the flight attendants eating their meals. I'm thinking, not so sure that that's a great idea, but that's maybe just me.
And the funny part is usually when I smell, I'm not going to say anything bad about airline meals, but usually when you smell that smell that's kind of offensive, you don't want to have anything to do with it.
You're
It's
right.
the airline meals, and when it's the home cooked meals, it's
Yeah, it's like, I
stuff
think
you
it
wanna
must
eat.
be like the container that they cook the things in. It's almost like a papery kind of off plasticky paper smell to it. And you're going, ew, that smells horrible.
especially all the ones that are like just in little trays that are,
Yeah.
the same.
Now, I would imagine that it's a completely different experience for Captain Nick, and the kind of meal service that they have on his airline probably is much higher quality and higher
Well,
class.
I do remember the warm
go there.
nuts.
Well, yeah. Let's not go there, guys, because I don't want you to, feel, that
Subpar.
you're missing out on
That's
something
okay.
that's delicious, and
Okay, that's
the
enough.
smoked salmon, the caviar, and the fillet steak, and the
Where's the mute switch?
How do I mute him? He can just unmute
the
himself, though. It doesn't do-
sushi, and all the other stuff, and
I had the lasagna.
the lasagna. Oh, really? Oh dear. Is that all?
Hey, so
Oh dear.
hey, Dana, you and your FO and Brett, y'all heading out to get something good to eat there in Chapel Hill?
Yeah, we will be shortly.
Okay, I didn't mean to push you away. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't waiting for us to end something and then leave. So, shall we keep going?
Yeah, I think one, maybe two more, and then we'll head out the door by 6:30.
Okay.
15 minutes.
Very good. Let's see. Ruben sent us some audio feedback. Let's take a listen.
G'day, mates. How you going? It's FO Ruben here, the Flying Dutchman Down Under. I fly the four-engined British Aerospace Avro RJ and 146 jets on regional routes in Australia. Yeah, it's an older plane already, but half the time we fly into gravel strips somewhere out in the desert, and that kind of jet kind of works pretty well on those routes. I guess to do this, we have our way of doing things, as does every operator have their own ways. So my question today relates to how your way of flight planning works in your operator, which is probably very different to what we do or any other operator does, and in particular to choosing cruise levels and speeds and how your operator goes about doing things. Who decides what cruising levels you'll be using for an upcoming sector? And are there some cases where sometimes you tend to choose to change them either before flight or in flight due to, I guess, circumstances or prior experience or gut feeling? Or how often, and also how often do you use step climbs? Or is this something you only do on the long haul, like when crossing the Atlantic, or I don't know whether you use them within the US? And what about cruising speeds? Do you just stick to planned cruising speeds, which are decided, I'm guessing, through a cost index by flight ops? I guess when I say cost index, a short explanation would be appropriate here. And how much leeway do you have in increasing the cruise speeds when you deviate? Well, I guess when you decide to deviate from whatever the flight ops department or dispatch decided to plan you at. Anyway, thanks in advance for the most probably interesting discussion. Good day, guys. Ruben out.
Well, I mean, to answer your question, Ruben, I mean, just really some really good questions here. Number one, we primarily are filed at a specific altitude that is planned by the dispatcher, but we have full latitude to go ahead and decide based on reports that we're hearing. We also have a flight weather viewer that will help us to decide what might be the best altitude based on turbulence. The air traffic controller will sometimes recommend what altitude would be best for the smoothest ride. And also we may ask, what the feeling is for the best ride is. Sometimes we'll even look on the flight plan, see what the winds are doing, and maybe the actual winds versus what the planned winds are might be a little different. So we take all this into consideration when we decide what altitude we're gonna on the Mad Dog on the shorter routes that we're gonna fly, and sometimes we'll go ahead and search for different altitudes to go ahead and try to find the smoothest ride, because as passenger aircraft, that's what we're looking for, is to provide the best possible ride for our passengers. Now, as far as flying the aircraft at the speed, well, the company really wants you to stay at the established speeds that they have your flight planned at for efficiency reasons. There are times in which we will speed up the aircraft. I won't say when we're trying to go home, because that would not be politically correct. But yes, the last leg, sometimes we do speed it up. Yesterday, excuse me, on you heard me talk about it earlier when I had that passenger removed. We were about 15 minutes late departing Sarasota, so I opted to go ahead and fly the aircraft at a much faster speed. Air traffic control actually didn't slow us down for change going into the hub, so we were actually able to make up most of that time and arrive at the gate on time. So there are situations in which we will go ahead and choose to use a higher cruise speed. But we prefer not to, because the efficiency goes way down. Just like if you're in your vehicle on the ground, or while on the Avro, if you fly the airplane faster, you're going to burn a lot more fuel quicker. As far as a step climb goes, yeah, we do on longer legs. We will do a step climb, and ours is based on weight, because our aircraft has the original wing really designed back from the DC-9, 30, 40, and 50 series. It really hasn't changed. So the wing itself, where we lose efficiency up high, it doesn't have the same amount of lift, so we have to lose some weight sometimes. Although I personally need to lose some weight. You never know. That might happen. But anyways, when we lose weight, then we're able to climb the aircraft up higher. And of course, the higher you go, generally speaking, the more efficient you are. So that's the basic answer from the smaller jets. What do you think, Nick?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say how fascinating your flying must be, Ruben, because I know some of those gravel strips in Australia must be pretty testing. They're probably not serviced that often, checked out, so you must probably get the odd surprise. I wonder if you do one of those low-level overflights just to make sure that all the kangaroos are off and there's no camels wandering over the strip before you actually make your approach to land.
Do they have camels in Australia?
Oh, yeah, some of the
okay.
best camels in the world. They're
Really?
exported. Yeah, there are a lot of camels that were used by the initial explorers in Australia and then released to the wild.
Ooh.
And because they've been breeding in the outback, they're considered to be very good quality stock, and they're actually purchased sometimes at great price by rich people in the Middle East who want to find racing camels. So yes, there are a lot of camels in Australia. So yeah, that must be. I mean, when you say doing things your own way, that kind of flying must be absolutely fascinating. And of course, the 146. I don't know about the Avro RJ, but the 146 I think is a pretty good airplane for operating off those kind of rough strips. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that. Anyway, if you get the chance to send some more feedback. But going to your questions. When it comes to cruising levels for us, of course, on a long haul flight, they're really quite vital. If you don't quite get your correct cruising level on a short haul flight, well, you're only up there an hour or two. It's not going to make a huge difference. But if you're going like for 10 hours and you're at the wrong level, that can increase your fuel burn by several percent. And you may not be carrying enough fuel to even allow you to get to your destination if you don't get your levels. And it's a lot more tactical. So we will always try and go initially for the level that's been calculated in our flight plan, because will run using all the wind data for the entire route. They'll run that route several times at all different levels to find the optimum. But it really depends on who's around you as to whether you go to the allocated flight level and try and climb in half an hour, or whether you stagger up to as high as you can go and burn a little bit more because you're just too high for the optimum, but you're safe in the knowledge now that you've got your flight level and that no one can take it away from you, because that's a common problem. If you fly at the best flight level. When it comes time to climb, you find that someone's camped out in the flight level you want, and they're too close for you to get up, particularly when you're across an ocean and you need a lot of separation between aircraft before you can go up and occupy the same flight level. So there's a lot of strategic thinking goes on in long haul flights to make sure you've achieved the right flight level and hold it for as long as possible. And we obviously step climb when we need to. I've never done a cruise climb. That's if you're in the north of Canada, sometimes there's nobody around you. You can get permission to do cruise climbs, but they're pretty rare. And for those who aren't familiar, cruise climb just allows you to put the aircraft basically in a very gentle climb, and as the aircraft burns off fuel, the aircraft will just creep up in altitude rather than holding level until the aircraft has burned off several tons and then jumping up 1, 2, 3 or 4,000 feet in one go, which is obviously doing it like that is slightly less efficient than allowing the aircraft to cruise climb, which obviously the best way of doing things. And cost index, well, in our outfit, it's, I won't say it's set in stone, but you have to have a good reason to change it. And what's more, just getting in on time is not always considered a suitable excuse for increasing your cost index and cruising faster, because it depends where your passengers may not be connecting on, and there may, for example, be a problem with the number of gates available. And if you get there on time or early, we always try and get there on time, but if you get there a little early, you may very well just end up sitting on the taxiway waiting for a gate to come free, in which case you just wasted a lot of fuel and money for no good reason.
Very good
How's
points.
that?
And I had the same I had the same thought that you did, Nick, was talking about landing on gravel airstrips. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
wow, that is definitely interesting. And I'm going to assume I had to leave for a moment, and I'm going to assume that Dana, you answered that question expertly, and I have nothing to add.
He
Yeah.
did. He did a fine job.
I don't know about so expertly because I'm talking my Boston slang, so that's not always the.
Well, I
most
can fix it in
optimal.
post.
You can fix it in post. I'll have to re-record it for you.
Just all four of us end up with the exact same accent on the finished product.
I'll try to imitate him. I can't. All right.
No,
Well,
that's an actually excellent question. Of course, I agree with both you guys as far as the Ruben's question and the type of flying he does. It's absolutely amazing to be able to go out there and be in your own world and fly that type of almost general aviation type of flying. It's a lot of fun. It's like a combination of both worlds. So kudos to you, on doing that and enjoying that. And thank you both of you guys for mentioning that. I was focusing more on the technical issues, certainly in the technical part of the question. So
One last
yeah.
thing to maybe mention for Ruben, if you're interested in learning more about how Legacy Airlines here in the United States, their flight planning operations, I'd point you over to Mike Carroll's podcast, Flying in Life. He's a dispatcher, so there's a lot of information related to a lot of these questions that you have on his podcast.
yes, absolutely. You're right.
Very true.
Good point.
Excellent point.
Okay.
On that note, I'm going to go ahead and say, on behalf of my fantastic first officer who's been so actively in participation, let me say it slowly because that way people can understand what I'm saying, in participating here, and Brett, we're going to go ahead and sign off because we're going to go explore this wonderful campus at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and find ourselves some food because we're hungry. Yeah. What were we going to say, Dr. Steph? I see.
Said go Heels.
Go Heels, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and explore the campus for a little bit and spend some time because actually Ken hasn't spent a whole lot of time here, so I'd like to go show it to him while it's still light outside.
Oh, yeah.
So
Beautiful campus.
Beautiful campus. So listen, guys, great being here. Thank you for having me on, and we'll hopefully catch you next week.
All right. Very good.
Good to
Have
see
a
you,
good time,
Dana.
Dana.
Cheers.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
good evening.
Guys, have a good dinner.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. I am at home here at the APG headquarters building by myself. My wife, Linda, left. It's her birthday today, and she left.
Happy birthday, Linda.
Yeah. She or she probably has arrived by now in Elon, North Carolina. Speaking of North Carolina, to visit my daughter. And it's like one of those weekends where, the moms are significant female people in their lives, kind of weekends. We had one of those for the dads / significant male people last year. I think I told everybody about that. And so she is gone, and we have animals, and one in particular who is pretty much mostly blind, mostly deaf, and her hind legs really aren't working
Aw.
very much anymore, and it's kind of
Poor
sad.
baby.
Anyway, I heard her barking while we were listening to Ruben's audio feedback, and I kind of through the back channels here said, "Hey, I got to go because I'm not sure what's going on up there, so I need to take care of her, and I still need to do some other items, get her outside and make sure that she's eating her dinner and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of times I actually have to hold her plate for her so she could eat. So with that, I think this would be a good time for us to play this week's Plain Tale. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Go for it, Jeff.
Here we go. As soon as I can find it. Here we go.
The old pilot's plain tales into thinner air. On my last tale, we heard about some aircraft that mysteriously carried on flying for miles without a pilot at the controls. This is a phenomenon that is not just restricted to the military. The dangers of high altitude flying are not really emphasized to the flying public, and many are completely happy to sit in their pressurized flying tube without any true understanding of the environment they're traveling through. Here, typing at my desk, I'm at 1 atmosphere of pressure. Above me is a layer of air that surrounds the Earth, and although we consider air to be light, the weight of many miles of air, about 75 miles or 120 kilometers of it, sits on our shoulders. To be more accurate, it presses on all parts of us continuously, and we have to live under its weight. It's the equivalent weight of a 30-foot, that's over 10 meters, column of water. That's about 14 pounds per square inch or 1 kilogram per square centimeter pressing down on us. The weight of all the air that surrounds the world is 5 million billion tons. We have evolved to live under that weight of air and can actually cope with much higher pressures. A record-breaking free diver has reached 24.5 times the weight of the atmosphere without suffering injury. What we are not so good at is coping with a reduction of air pressure. Despite the fact that the atmosphere reaches up to 75 miles, when we climb our airliners up to a common cruising level of around 36,000 feet, about 7 miles high, 3/4 of the mass of the atmosphere is now below us, and the air is at a much lower pressure. Having been explosively decompressed in a hyperbaric chamber by the Air Force a few times, the effects are not as death-defying as one might imagine. The biggest concern is keeping the flow of oxygen that we are breathing at a high enough concentration and pressure to pass through the walls of the lungs. The membranes inside the lungs are only 1 cell thick, but gas molecules need pressure to pass through and into the bloodstream. Take that pressure away and the transfer of gases stops. You'll soon start suffering from hypoxia, a lack of oxygen to the body. Depending on the severity, hypoxia can soon lead to unconsciousness and death. Payne Stewart was a fine golfer. Popular with spectators, he was renowned for wearing distinctive and flamboyant clothes. Other golfers admired him for having one of the most gracefully fluid golf swings of the modern era. By 1999, he had won 11 PGA Tour events, including 3 majors, one of which was the US Open. He was part of the American team that had rallied so well to win the 1999 Ryder Cup. A month after that momentous victory, he boarded a Learjet to fly from his home in Orlando to Texas for the last tournament of the year. Tasked with flying Payne Stewart and his fellow passengers that day were 2 experienced pilots. Captain Michael Kling held an air transport pilot certificate, and his type rating included airliners as well as the Learjet that he was flying that day. In addition, he was an instructor pilot on the KC-135. His first officer, Stephanie Bellegargue, was also a flight instructor and held type ratings on the Cessna Citation 500 and the Learjet. There was nothing unusual about their flight preparation that day. They checked the weather, filed their flight plan, and loaded more than enough fuel for their flight to Dallas. They took the Sunjet Aviation Learjet off from Sanford Airport for the short and uneventful positioning flight to Orlando International, where they were due to pick up their passengers. Having embarked their famous golfer plus 3 others, they took off for the second time that day, initially routing north on the departure, climbing up to 14,000 feet. They were further cleared to climb to 26,000 feet, change frequency, and then were cleared to continue their climb to their cruise level of flight level 390, 39,000 feet. They acknowledged the instruction as they passed 23,000 feet. It was the voice of Stephanie, the first officer, who sounded perfectly normal, but it was to be their final transmission. As the Learjet passed 36,000 feet, the controller passed further instructions, but there was no reply. The controller made multiple attempts to contact the aircraft, but nothing came back. The authorities acted swiftly. A nearby F-16 from the Flight Test Squadron at Elgin Air Force Base was vectored to join up with the stricken aircraft, which had continued to climb to over 46,000 feet. The inside of the Learjet's cabin was in darkness, and the cockpit windows were frosted over with ice or condensation, and nothing could be seen of the 2 pilots. When he had to leave the Learjet, other fighters joined it to track its progress. It continued onwards, crossing state after state, and not responding to calls until, eventually, fuel exhausted, it slowed, stalled, and then began a rapid rolling descent towards the earth miles below. A pheasant hunter in a South Dakota cornfield was teaching a hunting class when he spotted a silent aircraft plummet down into an adjacent field a mile or 2 away. It was an eerie and shocking sight to witness. The aircraft crashed. No sound, no explosion. It just disappeared behind the tall corn stalks. Then 4 F-16 fighters roared overhead, breaking the silence. All on the Learjet died. Had they somehow not perished in the air, the aircraft hit the ground at such a speed that survival would have been impossible. The inquiry did their best to establish the cause of the crash, but were hampered by a lack of evidence. What was obvious was that the pilots had succumbed to hypoxia when the aircraft depressurized in the climb, and they failed to obtain the supplementary oxygen that they needed to remain capable of dealing with the emergency. It's possible that the oxygen tank that they were trying to use was empty, since the Learjet had flown over 104 hours since the last recorded filling of the system, and it was almost certainly used on some of those flights. When the aircraft crashed, it was reading empty. It's also possible that the crew were just too slow to don their masks and became incapacitated before they could do so. There were just too many unanswered questions, and the NTSB formally determined that the probable cause of the accident was incapacitation of the flight crew members as a result of their failure to receive oxygen following a loss of cabin pressure for undetermined reasons. As tragic as this crash was, it pales into insignificance compared with the second half of this tale. Helios Flight 522 was a scheduled airline flight between Larnaca in Cyprus and Athens in Greece. It was August 2005, and the aircraft, a Boeing 737-300 series, was carrying 115 passengers, mainly Cypriots and Greeks, and being captained by Hans-Jürgen Merten, a 59-year-old German contract pilot hired by Helios for the holiday flights. Merton was an experienced pilot who had been flying for 35 years and previously worked on a number of airlines. His first officer was a 51-year-old Cypriot pilot who had been flying for Helios for the past 5 years. The aircraft had arrived from London that morning and been snagged by the inbound crew for having a frozen door seal, and abnormal noises had been heard from around the right aft service door. The British ground engineer carried out an inspection on the door and then performed a pressurization check. In order to do this without running the engines, he needed to set the pressurization system to manual, and on completion of the successful test, that's how the system was left. The pilots climbed into the aircraft and prepared it for flight. According to their checklists and procedures, they were required to check the state of the pressurization system and confirm that it was set in auto 3 separate times: during the cockpit setup, during the after start checklist, and also during the after takeoff checklist. There are surprisingly few things that will kill you when flying in an airliner. Hitting the ground is one of them, and flying at high level without pressurization is another. At a little after 9 in the morning, the Helios flight got airborne with the pressurization system set to manual and the aft outflow valve partially open. Had the system been correctly set to auto, the outflow valves would have closed after takeoff to allow the aircraft to pressurize. On reaching the correct pressure differential, the valves would then open slightly to allow a controlled flow out of the aircraft to maintain the correct cabin altitude. In the manual position, the outflow valves must be controlled by the pilots. It's a backup system should the automatic system fail. As the 737 climbed, air bled from the engines would have been entering the cabin to pressurize the aircraft. But since the system had been left in manual, with an outflow valve partially open, the air was escaping almost as fast as it was coming in. As the aircraft climbed, so did the cabin, and the aircraft was rapidly increasing in height to the point where the air pressure was becoming dangerously low. Eventually, passing an aircraft altitude of 12,000 feet, the cabin altitude warning horn sounded. This was coincident with the cabin altitude reaching 10,000 feet. A warning horn on the 737 has several functions, only one of which is linked to cabin altitude. It most commonly sounds when the aircraft isn't configured properly. Perhaps the landing gear or flaps were in the wrong position. Misidentifying the reason for the horn, the captain radioed his company operations center to advise them that the takeoff configuration warning is on. He then advised that the cooling equipment, normal and alternate, are offline. Speaking to the ground engineer who did the earlier work on the pressurization system, the engineer asked him, "Can you confirm that the pressurization panel is set to auto?" Of course, this wasn't the case, and it should have been the trigger for the crew to reassess their situation as the light indicating that the pressurization system was set to manual was illuminated and the warning horn was blaring. However, perhaps distracted by the noise of the loud horn and by now suffering from the effects of hypoxia, the crew would have had difficulty comprehending their situation. Captain Merton made the fatal mistake of ignoring his engineer. The aircraft continued to climb, and as it passed 18,000 feet, with the cabin altitude reaching 14,000, the passenger oxygen masks deployed. The captain, still trying to solve the less important issue regarding his equipment cooling, made his final transmission asking where the circuit breakers were. Under the control of the autopilot, the 737 reached its cruising altitude of 34,000 feet and then continued on its programmed flight path towards Athens. Inside the cabin, the air was thinner than on the peak of Everest, and after 12 minutes, the passenger oxygen system would have been exhausted. On the flight deck, the pilots never used their oxygen masks, and they likely succumbed to the effects of oxygen starvation by falling unconscious. Soon after, in the cabin, the passengers would have suffered the same fate. The cabin crew, however, had a longer supply of oxygen from their portable bottles, and it's certain that at least one of them used that supply for the duration of the flight. Flight attendant Andreas Prodromou was learning to become a pilot and held a UK commercial pilot's license. We know he eventually gained access to the cockpit, a difficult task because of the locked cockpit door procedure, because he was observed there by a Hellenic Air Force F-16 that had been scrambled to intercept the unresponsive 737. Initially, the F-16 pilot could only see the first officer on the flight deck, slumped motionless in his seat, and unresponsive passengers at the windows, surrounded by dangling and by then useless oxygen masks. By this time, the aircraft had been flying an automatic holding pattern overhead its destination airport for some time. Andreas broke into the flight deck and sat in the captain's seat, reaching up to the front panel that controls the autopilot, presumably in an attempt to descend the aircraft. Sadly, very shortly after entering the cockpit, the 737 ran out of fuel. First one, and then both engines flamed out, and Andreas made several mayday calls. These could only be heard on the cockpit voice recorder, as the radio was still tuned to a Larnaca frequency that was well out of range. The descending airliner took up a meandering course, and the fighter pilot on its wing tried to get Andreas to follow him to the airport. Now down to 7,000 feet, Andreas waved briefly, but despite his efforts, the aircraft continued to descend rapidly until it collided with the hilly terrain about 20 miles from Athens. Although unconscious, some on the aircraft had survived the depressurization, but in the subsequent crash, all on board perished. The year before this accident, the NASA Aviation Safety Reporting System Office had issued Boeing, the FAA, and other aviation industry organizations with an alert bulletin warning them of the high number of incidents in the United States when the 737 cabin altitude warning horn had been confused with a configuration warning. Incidents went back a long way, but no effort had been made to integrate the warning with an indication on the main warning panel. Boeing themselves had revised their checklist procedures in the year 2000, and they made further changes in 2005, but when the Helios aircraft was lost, changes to the flight crew training manual reinforcing the importance of the horn in relation to cabin altitude had yet to be issued. However, a year after this event, pilots were still reporting confusion. 3 in February 2006 alone. One pilot reported, "Given the development and increasing sophistication of the aircraft systems on the Boeing 737 and its variants, it's noteworthy that the cabin altitude warning system has remained virtually unchanged for nearly 50 years and shares similarities with the Boeing 727. Why this system has not been tied into the master caution warning system escapes me." Well, it escapes me too, but finally, Boeing learned from this and other incidents, and thankfully have now modified their aircraft with supplementary visual warning lights, but all a bit late for the 121 aboard Helios Flight 522.
Well, they say that hypoxia is an insidious thing that you just kind of start losing your cognitive abilities to think things through. And I've experienced this through visits to an altitude chamber and just doing simple math and other basic things that a toddler probably, well, toddlers can't do math, but unless they're really smart, but you know what I mean?
Second grader.
Yeah. You after the fact that you look at your little piece of paper that you've been given very simple instructions to or problems to complete, and you look and see how really cognitively impaired you are when you are experiencing hypoxia.
So I've not personally experienced that, but what I understand is that most people don't really realize how impaired they actually are. It's very hard to recognize those symptoms. So that's why the training is so important, so that you do learn to recognize what those symptoms are, because oftentimes, well, most of the time, all of the time, it's specific to an individual, which symptoms you'll develop first, but it's often reproducible. So each time you have or are exposed to a situation that would make you hypoxic, you develop the same symptoms.
Yeah,
Some of those. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say it's important that those of us who are most likely to suffer it get repetitive training, because, of course, one of the functions, one of the side effects of hypoxia is that you lose your short-term electrical memory. The memory that you retain is the long-term chemical-based memory. That and so if you've only experienced hypoxia just once, perhaps, in your lifetime, then it's unlikely that you'll recall those symptoms. But the point about repeating your hypoxia training is that it becomes ingrained in your chemical memory, which means you can recall it when you're starting to suffer. That memory will be retained, and you can recognize the symptoms if you're alert to them, which is the important bit, and which is why so many military pilots have successfully dealt with hypoxic situations, and sadly why civilian pilots often succumb. And I was reading, I mean, there's a whole list of dramas amongst private pilots who fly pressurized aircraft who succumbed. And part of it is because they don't go through the training, but there are training regimes out there where you don't necessarily need to be depressurized. You can just have the symptoms induced by replacing the oxygen in a mask with some inert gas like nitrogen, which will give you the same effect. So
Sure, just decrease that partial pressure of, or not the partial pressure, but the percentage of the
the percentage,
gas
which has the same effect as
as
decrease
the
the partial pressure that you would achieve if your aircraft depressurized. And for those who pilots who do fly pressurized aircraft and aren't airline pilots, or even who are airline pilots, I would so strongly recommend that if you get the chance to practice real hypoxia training, it's absolutely essential. As I suggested, there are very few ways you can kill yourself in an airliner, but allowing the aircraft to depressurize or suffering from hypoxia, or perhaps something else that is insidious, like smoke fumes, something burning, something foreign getting into the air on the aircraft. It's so important to smack that mask on and get pure oxygen so that you stand a chance of recovering and dealing with the situation.
That's a very interesting point you make, Nick, regarding the long-term chemical memory and the short-term electrical synapses or memory access, and the fact that I've only been in the altitude chamber and experienced symptoms of aerobic hypoxia once in my life, and that was when I was in the Air Force back in the early 80s. And now I'm thinking, wow, I really need to kind of do that again to kind of remember, or maybe too late for me. But
No, I think rethinking the memory probably generates that long term. I mean, because you've thought about it, you thought about it, you thought about it over the years. I think the chances are you would, if you remember those symptoms accurately, you would be able to recall them. But the best thing, of course, is as we used to have a minimum requirement of once every 3 years in the Air Force, we had to undergo hypoxia.
so listening to the show and doing the show is actually helping me stay alive, perhaps, if ever suffer hypoxia again.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
I don't
Also
know.
helps
Probably
you
not.
cope with that, 75 miles of air pressure that's pounding down on your body right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Well, there is more than one type of hypoxia. We were talking about, I don't know if that's the right term, aerobic hypoxia.
Keep going. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
But there is another type of hypoxia that many of
yes.
us
Oh, yes.
adults
Okay. I
experience.
understand. Yes.
If you
That
are
was the loss of judgment. I was actually going to bring that up because not only do you have to recognize the symptoms, because you're suffering from an effect that is very similar to imbibing alcohol. In other words, hypoxia brings on a loss of judgment, which is amplified, and the chances are that you may not even want to do the actions required to put that damn mask on. You may be feeling drunk and euphoric. Some people feel down and depressed and just don't want to do anything. Hypoxia has a different effect on people, just as alcohol does. But one of the symptoms you get from drinking alcohol can be very similar to the symptoms you get from hypoxia.
right. So I guess the mechanics of it is that you're displacing the oxygen molecules in your bloodstream, right?
The
with
body's unable to use the oxygen because of the effect of the alcohol, as opposed to not having enough oxygen or partial pressure of oxygen available.
That's interesting. Now, I am curious to know, Steph, I don't know if you know the answer. If you are a happy drunk, will you be a happy hypoxic person?
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't know, because it's
We're going to have to do
not,
some research on that.
it's the same ultimate effect, is that the body cannot use oxygen either because it is not available or because the body itself cannot use it because of metabolic changes. I would think that the effects would be similar, but strictly speaking, they're slightly different mechanisms. So I don't know.
It is interesting, though, isn't it? Because some people get aggressively drunk, some
Mhm.
people get very happy, and
that's usually a consistent thing for people. People aren't, either happy or aggressive. It's one or the other.
Interesting, isn't it?
It is.
But the very sad thing about that accident was that the guys themselves, the pilots, had 3 opportunities to set their cockpit up correctly and correct the position of their pressurization system so that it would get normal pressurized. 3 opportunities, and 2 of them were checklist items. And that just brings to me the concern about lack of checklist.
Yeah, poor checklist discipline.
Checklist discipline.
Mhm.
It may seem so tedious when you're doing it again and again, particularly for someone who does, like you, multiple sectors in a day.
Yeah.
Repeating the same checklist over and over.
It's so easy just to kind of say whatever it is that you're supposed to respond with when somebody says pressurization panel set, and actually look up and make sure that it really is set.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's that phenomenon of doing the same thing over and over and over again that you forget. If you just did it not that long ago, your brain can remember the previous event as being what just happened.
Yeah, and you start repeating checklist by rote rather than physically doing the actual check. You're just saying the words.
That is a hazard for sure.
Yeah, and for me, it's one of the great qualities of a good pilot is that they have discipline, self-discipline, that making sure that they actually do that, because without that, so many more mistakes would be made.
And for me, I do, so in my job, especially when I'm doing procedural things, it's often the same procedure or very similar procedure every 15 minutes, starting over again. And there's a whole procedure that you go through to do it.
All day?
All day,
Oh,
every
God.
15 minutes. And, you get to the end of the day and it's, I never have a problem with myself asking or someone else asking, hey, I just want to make sure. I think I remember us doing this. Did we do that? Because there are certain protocols that have to be followed. So you always want to double check.
Well, absolutely. I have enough trouble remembering if I took the pill I'm supposed to take in the morning. And I look at my pill box and go, well, how many
Yes,
did
I
I have
took it.
Yes,
Not
I
there.
took it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Either the
That's
dog
the
ate it
same.
or I took
Yeah,
it.
exactly right.
It's the same thing. We do these procedural timeouts. So you're basically someone in the room is reading through everything that you're going to do for the patient. And sometimes you go, do we do that this time around? Do we already
Yeah.
run
That
that
happens,
checklist?
in my environment too, Steph, we'll be descending and then we did the descent check, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then
In those cases, it never hurts just to look
No, then
through
we
it
go, let's
again.
do it
Just
again.
do it
just to make
again.
sure.
Just do it again. If
Yeah.
there's any
Yeah.
doubt, 100% do it again.
Yeah, in fact, I love it when people do that, because the first officer might go, I can't remember. And I go, well, actually, I can't remember either. So let's do it again. And when people say, yes, let's do it again, because they're committed to ensuring things are done properly, I have a nice warm feeling about that. It's the people who go, yeah, I'm sure we did it.
Yeah.
I'm going, well, I'm not so sure.
that's
And
for
now I'm
sure.
going to make myself to be at a bit of a stickler, because I'm going to ask the guy, no, let's do it to make sure.
Mhm.
And then I think like a bit of a fool, but I don't actually have a problem feeling like that.
No, I don't either. I mean, everybody thinks I'm a fool anyway. So, usually when you're doing it the second time, you'll recognize whether or not, at some point during that checklist, you'll go, oh yeah, I think we did do this, but let's keep going until the end. And,
Yeah. It's like having the discipline when you get interrupted halfway through, and there is the concern that when you go back to the checklist, you won't pick up from exactly the right spot. You start the checklist all over again.
Right.
So, that kind of discipline needs to be built right from the ground up. And that's one of my worries, that perhaps people pay lip service to it. I'm going, nah. We're into an important bloody job to do that.
And that's
It's
why
easy.
that's why those checks are there. You have to make sure that they're done
And
correctly.
it's
If they're
so
not,
easy.
then it defeats the purpose of them altogether. So
And it's so easy to do, because as you said, Dr. Steph and Captain Nick, that the kind of flying that I'm doing, if you do 3 flights a day or more, after a while, you
it all kind of blends into
Yeah.
one. Well, that was
I
this
think I've-
flight. Oh no, that was last
Didn't
flight.
we do the pre-flight checklist?
We did this already.
Yeah, we did it
Did it?
last flight, but not this flight.
Yeah.
So
Nope, I understand that very well because it's very easy to.
like what you were just mentioning. how,
exactly.
you have to do it constantly throughout the day.
Mhm.
That's amazing. All
That's why I get here at the end of the day and my brain is just fried sometimes. It's like, nope, I have spent all of the brain cells for today. There will be no more logical thought.
By the way, I did read the other day that drinking doesn't actually kill brain cells.
Oh, good.
Carry on. Cheers.
You sure?
Cheers.
I was the last thing I was going to add before we move on to the next one is that, and this might be a silly thing, but there are times, especially these early mornings after a while, start really kind of making you pretty beat, and you might be in the middle of the cruise portion of your flight, and start getting a little bit sleepy. Like, okay, I need to do something to stay awake, and I sometimes look up at the pressurization panel just to make sure that the airplane is still showing the proper PSID or wait a minute, Delta P
Ding.
on the gauge, and make sure that the airplane is actually pressurized.
Make
because,
sure it's just you feeling sleepy
Yeah.
and not you know,
Exactly. Is it just because
some
of the
external
really early mornings
force.
and maybe not getting as much sleep as I should? Or is it because maybe the pressurization system is malfunctioning and I'm actually experiencing hypoxia? And thankfully, every time I've done that, it's just me.
Just you. Yeah. Yeah. That was me about an hour ago. So
Yeah. I need a cup of coffee, please.
Yeah.
I have to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One with lots of oxygen.
Yes. Yes. Extra oxygen in my coffee.
Extra oxygen with my coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to read this comment from Jennifer in the chat room because it's hilarious. I'm sorry. She said, my son just looked over at my iPad and inquired if this was the Colonel Sanders lookalike podcast.
I love fried chicken.
I'm sorry.
Jen, tell your son it's not funny.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if he thinks that I also look like Colonel Sanders.
That would be sad, actually. No, trust me, you don't look anything like Colonel Sanders.
Okay, good.
So
Just checking.
the two of us remaining in this crew, though.
You look a bit like a chicken, though.
Okay. And my daughter just tried to call me, so I'll need to call her back. She's probably wondering, about dinner and if she's coming home tonight to take care of the kitties. Anyway, let's continue with. We're only on number 4.
Yeah, Liz was so optimistic about us finishing this, all this feedback that she.
But
put
we've
in.
been
It
having
really-
good discussion, I think.
Yes.
Okay. And I think there's going to be a good discussion from this one as well. And this starts off. This is Amar. Hello, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Captain Dana, and the amazing Dr. Steph. Thanks, Amar.
Thank you.
First off, I want to say thank you for an amazing podcast. I have no idea how you guys do it, pumping out quality content every week.
That's what she says.
I think Amar has been drinking.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's suffering from hypoxia. From his.
Oh wait, it's hypoxic hypoxia. I think the one that we experienced.
Yeah, there's actually 4 different types of hypoxia.
I just don't remember all the different.
I know I had to look too because I did that whole podcast with the airplane geeks about it, but off the top of my head, I have to look up the actual names for them. But one is because you lose the partial pressure or because your lungs can't transfer it to your body. The other one's because the next one is because you've actually replaced the oxygen content with something else. The third one is the tissues cannot use the oxygen. And then there's a fourth one, which is more like stagnant hypoxia. So you're not getting adequate circulation, which is a little bit different. Yeah. And don't ask me what the actual scientific names are right now. I'd have to go look. But
unless you use them like on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to remember.
That is not in my field.
Yeah.
I know they exist and I know what they are, but
okay, continuing on. Amar says, I've been bouncing back and forth between different aircraft types lately. When I think about the takeoff briefing, we enumerate any number of circumstances that would dictate the necessity to abandon the takeoff. If the decision is subsequently taken, we accomplish the goal in 2 steps. First, by stopping the aircraft, and then by executing the associated checklists. I've noticed different OEMs and SOP. So, what's the OEM stand for? I thought that was original equipment manufacturer. I thought that's what OEM stands for.
Yeah, perhaps they're talking about the manufacturers.
Different brands of airplanes, and then standard operating procedures. Call for a different word to be used as the executive. Virtually any word, be it abort, reject, stop, whoa, or holy
beep,
to be used as the trigger. Thank you. I love that. Inline censorship. I have in one environment or another used all of the first 3. Call me simple, but I personally find stop the least ambiguous or confusing of the 3. The word in itself states exactly what we want to accomplish. That is, to stop the aircraft. Once that most critical phase of the reject has been accomplished, we can take a deep breath and move on to the second phase. So my question to you all, abort, reject, stop, or holy shoot. Oh, I was waiting for the censor beep.
Sorry,
Okay,
I had to stop chewing my appetizer here and unmute the.
I'll fix it in post. Not the most eloquent feedback, but I hope you can dredge my intent out of my ramblings. Or you can dredge my, okay. Hope to see you guys soon. Cheers. And he says, P.S. I might have misfired an email to you with nothing in it. I wanted to share a YouTube video about speed check. I think your audience will find it interesting. And
Been
we'll
there,
play
done that.
This is great if you've never heard it. So.
We're gonna let's.
You mean there's someone out there who might not have seen it?
I think there may have been maybe a whole bunch of people.
Maybe
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play a little snippet of it.
Okay.
But after we discuss his question regarding.
Oh, stop!
Okay, I'll stop. Oh, you're talking about rejecting a takeoff. We tend to say abort. That's what they expect us to say. But
oh, really? Okay.
In the situation when it happens, it's whatever word necessary to indicate your intent, and you would most likely. And my airline and our standard operating procedures, nobody is like my first. Let's say I'm at the controls and it's my takeoff. My first officer is not supposed to say stop, reject, abort. He or she is supposed to tell me what it is that they're looking at that is of great concern to them, and then I make the decision. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that's what we do at Acme.
That's what we do at Acme Red.
Okay. But when
That's to prevent someone from just going, like say something specific. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So when the rejection starts, whether I'm at the controls already or I'm taking over the controls from my first officer, I'll state with, great exuberance that I'm aborting the takeoff. And it'll be very obvious from my actions that I'm attempting to get the airplane stopped. But that's the way we do. But, he makes a good point. Maybe, stop would be the best way to do it.
I was just having this conversation with my physical therapist of all people for
takeoff rejection procedures.
No, but the words that you use when you want something to stop. And to be honest, I can't even remember the word that she uses because we were talking about needle-based procedures, which just use it as a stand-in for aborting a takeoff. You're doing something and you need to stop it for some reason. In this case, it's because it hurts. But you want to make the intention very clear that you want the person to stop what they're doing. I actually do use the word stop. I will tell my patients, if you want me to stop what I'm doing, you say stop, I will stop. That's it. Done. If I hear that word, done. If I hear anything else, I will ask, I will prompt, I will see if we can do something to make it different. And she said, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense because that's actually what you want. What you want the intent to be communicated as. You want it to be stop, not oh, hey, something else, something that's easy to remember, something that's effective, something that gets your point across. And I think it works good in this situation. But I also think as long as everyone's got the same training and everyone is on the same page, here we're going back and forth between a couple different aircraft types and there's different training across the board. I think that's where it can get really confusing potentially.
And, honestly, in that situation, when you encounter a situation where something really bad is happening and I have to stop this airplane, who knows what you're actually going to say.
Well, that's what I mean. I think a lot of times that's why this training is so important because I wasn't kidding about the person who goes, sometimes that's all your brain can manage when you see something unexpected, which these things are always unexpected. You're not expecting to have something happen where you're going to have to abort a takeoff, reject a takeoff, stop a takeoff. Even though it's always there in the back of your mind and you train for it on a day-to-day basis, that's not the first thing you're thinking about.
Right. You never expect the unexpected.
Exactly. No one expects the Spanish.
So we have a very, very strict series of commands. And in fact, almost all our verbal procedures are very strict and laid down. And you are supposed to use Steph, what on earth are you doing? So
she's stuffing her face with something. Nick, you're supposed to ignore those video thumbnails.
I was trying to make it. Yeah, sorry. If you're listening to the podcast, I do apologize.
That's the second time that Steph has distracted us.
Absolutely.
I really did not mean to this time around. I really just thought that was going to be something simple to take a bite of. It's stuffed mushrooms, and it was very juicy and difficult to take a discreet
Squirting
bite
all
out
over
of.
your blouse.
Yeah, basically. So it was less than elegant if you were watching the video.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, my
I mean,
apologies.
Just pretend like that didn't happen.
On the rejected takeoff scenario, you must say one of two words. So if there's any doubt as to whether the takeoff should be discontinued or continued, you say stop or go. In other words, you must make a decision. Otherwise, the first officer may think you're incapacitated. It may be incapacitation that is physical, or it may be just mental incapacitation.
Startle.
Yeah, through the startle effect, you're unable to make a suitable decision. So if you don't enunciate one of those two words, it's quite likely that the bloke sitting beside you will do the right thing, which is take control of the aircraft and do what he thinks is correct. So we say stop or go. Personally, I think that's the clearest and least unambiguous. Yeah, exactly right. Set of commands. But of course, other airlines have different procedures, and they've successfully flown safely for years. But personally, I really like the way our company does that.
Yeah, that's I agree.
I like all of the logic behind it.
Yeah.
I'm still choking on that. Sorry.
All choked up. Well, hey, before we move on to the next piece of feedback, let me set up this little audio snippet from the video to which Amar was referring us to. And I think we've talked about it on the show at least once, maybe more, where a SR-71 Blackbird pilot was giving a talk somewhere, and he was relating a story that occurred with himself and his backseater on the SR-71. And the first thing, they were doing this long flight, and they were with, I think, Los Angeles Center, and they heard someone on the radio say, Cessna, November, so-and-so and so-and-so, could you, give me my ground speed readout, asking the center to let him know how fast he was going. And I think the answer that this guy gave, Major Brian Schul, 90-something knots. And then shortly after that, a Twin Beach comes on and asks the ATC controller, or the air traffic controller, the same question. Could you give me my ground speed? And I think it was something like 120-something knots. And that's where the video continues here, and we'll listen to the rest of it. Pretty amusing. Why am I not hearing? Oh, I know why. Hang on. I faded out something earlier and I forgot to return the. Here we go.
And right after that, a Navy F-18 out of Lemoore popped up on frequency. And you knew it was a Navy guy because he talked really slick on the radio. Center Dusty 5-2 speed check. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Dusty 5-2 has a ground speed indicator and that $1 million F-18 cockpit. It's right there in the heads-up display. Why is he calling center to broadcast his speed? I get it. We have just the meanest, baddest, fastest military jet in the valley today. We're taking our little Hornet jet over Mount Whitney and ripping across Death Valley. We want everyone from Fresno to the coast to know what real speed is. And you can almost hear a little glee in the controller's voice, like, we have put an end to this. Dusty 5-2, we show you 620, 620 knots across the ground. And it was that across the ground. See that little knife, like, I hope nobody else has the nerve to get on frequency now. And there wasn't an airliner from Seattle to San Diego that wanted to be next on Freak. It's sort of an etiquette thing amongst flyers. And a 12-year-old was reaching for the mic button. And I thought, oh, no, wait, Walter's in charge of the radios. I flew single seat all those years, but I'm in the family model now. And I wanted, no, it's the Navy. They must die. They must die now. And I thought, no, but if I do, I'll upset Walter, and I want us to be a good crew. And at that moment, I heard a click of the mic button in the back seat. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter and I became a crew at that moment. His best innocent voice, LA Center, Aspen 30. Have you got a ground speed radar for us? You could almost hear a collective gasp on Freak, like, oh, the poor fools didn't hear the previous transmissions. Oh, they got crushed like a grape. It's just a pilot thing. But Center had to give you that same voice. Aspen 30, we show you 1,992 knots across the ground. When I knew I was going to like Walter a lot is when he came back and said, Center, we're showing a little closer to 2,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not hear another transmission on that frequency all the way to the coast. The king of speed lived, the Navy had been flamed, and a crew had been formed. For just a moment, it was absolutely fun being the fastest guys on the block.
I love that one.
Me too.
She's got a great way of telling that story. Yeah.
Air crew bonding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good. Very good. Okay, I will put the actual link to the full where that story starts in the show notes. You can watch Major Brian Schul on stage relate the story.
Now, Nick Camacho has
Oh, yeah.
a question.
I forgot. Yeah, he asked us to go ahead, Nick.
Well, he's asked to tell him how often we have to abort, how many times in a year. And I'm going to go, I've stopped once in my career. So I don't know about once a year. No, that's once in my civil career, 25 years. So, and that was a pretty slow speed abort because of a pretty early warning of a problem. So less than 70 knots. So the auto brakes didn't even kick in. We just dribbled to a halt in a very unsatisfactory and undramatic manner. Yeah, so it's a pretty rare event. Of course, in the simulators, you can be guaranteed we're going to get like 3 or 4 every 6 months or so. So yeah, we're pretty practiced, but doing it for real, nah, pretty rare.
I've never had a high speed abort, and I mean, I don't even remember the last time I even had a low speed abort. I don't think I ever as a captain for myself.
Yeah, that's how rare they are. Because, quite honestly, the systems are designed and the procedures are there. Pardon me, to make sure that we do a successful takeoff, and it. Oh, I said burpee. That beer. That was.
I've been having the same.
Bless you, Nick.
Issue.
Bless you.
Redwell Steam Lager. Won't be drinking that again.
Blame it on the beer.
Yeah, sorry. There you go.
Still choking on that mushroom.
Yeah, how's that mushroom go?
It still burns a little still. Anyway.
Burning mushrooms. I wonder what kind of mushrooms you're eating there, Steph.
I'm beginning to wonder, actually. They were delicious. No, more a function of it just didn't make it down the right pipe as it was juicier than I intended.
Do you have a mushroom pipe? That's clever.
I'm just digging my hole here and creating evidence.
Well, because of your mushroom issue, I won't have you read this stuff.
Oh, no, it's okay. That actually might help clear things
Okay.
up. We'll see. Which one are we reading? 5. Okay. Brett has an update for us on Gatwick drones and police speculate perhaps an inside job. Says, hello, APG crew. Gatwick drone chaos may have been an inside job, police say. Saw this news story. He gave a link to, I think it's a CNN article on Apple News. So he saw this story and chuckled a little to himself as he was reading it. The police are speculating the drone incursion at Gatwick was a, quote, inside job because the drone pilot seemed to have knowledge of the airport operations and had a link into what was going on. Well, don't most aviation enthusiasts, aka avgeeks, have knowledge of airport operations? And by using apps, web pages like FlightAware or Flight Radar 24, it's easy enough to see the traffic patterns currently being used at almost every airport in the world. Interestingly enough, when I looked at Gatwick on Flight Radar 24 while writing this note to you, I could zoom in enough on the airport ground traffic that I could even see the, quote, follow me trucks that Captain Nick has talked about on prior episodes. Now, who needs inside information when it's handed to you over the interweb? Duh. And the response, in typical fashion of any incident that threatens the flow of daily life, the management of the airport has spent a lot of money on an anti-drone defense system. I will avoid the opportunity to drone on about social and political issues. Most responses are a little like closing the barn doors after the horses have gotten out. But that's the way many protective measures or countermeasures are put in place in our daily lives. I'll stop there and leave the rest of the conversation to your crew. The story does make for interesting reading and gives people something else to chat about at the water cooler / coffee pot. Cheers, good day. Thanks for keeping us informed and entertained. He's got a countdown timer to AirVenture that he linked, and also countdown days to his retirement. Well, that doesn't sound familiar at all, Brett. 1,855 days
Oh.
as of the date of the email.
What is mine? I don't want to hear Nick's.
Nick's is like minus 20 now. It's fine.
He's getting there.
Trying to remember the app that we were using for that. Was it called Reminders or something like that?
Shut up, Echo.
Reminder. Oh boy, here we go. I have 1,704 days. So I'm beating Brett.
Oh, you're going to beat him. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well done. That's
By half a year,
almost
I guess.
150 days.
Mhm.
151
That's like
days.
half a
left.
year, almost half a year.
So,
Nicely done.
Month at least.
you know what? I know that this was an inside job because this guy actually knew what an airplane, what type of an airplane was. I mean, only
There you go.
insiders know that
Yeah.
information.
Absolutely.
You mean not everyone just stands outside and looks up and goes, oh, CRJ 900.
You know, I
Yeah.
still think there's a huge amount of
Boeing 737.
confusion over exactly what happened because you know there's no real evidence other than some videos taken on phones and that sort of thing, very poor quality, that have been produced and certainly available to the general public about exactly what was going on. And I think, quite honestly, it was all a bit of a cock up. But there's undoubtedly a drone there at some point. And I think they've
Was there?
well, yeah, I'm pretty certain. But I think they've managed to put the fear of God into most people. So I don't know. It hasn't happened. You see, I predicted it might be a tactic. If it was being used, one of these people who were interested in denying airport use as an ecological protest.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then-
And I think most of us kind of thought, oh no, the cat's out of
Yeah.
the bag. Now everybody's
Well,
going to be doing
yeah, but it doesn't seem to have
Yeah.
happened, doesn't it? There's not many copycats.
odd.
So, yeah.
Maybe
Quite.
they're dumber than we thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe.
And
Maybe.
if you're one of those people, sorry, I didn't mean to insult you.
Yes, you did.
Yes, we did. Well, if Jeff didn't, Nick and I certainly did.
Hey, you know what? We're getting close to the end of the show, and we do.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. First Officer Craig, who is an E-170, an Embraer 170 pilot, had we talked about that wingtip, the E-170 wingtip scrape in Chihuahua, Mexico, and he
A
sent us
wingtip hit a Chihuahua?
Yeah,
Was it okay?
Yeah, no.
Oh, damn.
But he sent us some audio feedback, kind of as a follow-up to our discussion on the show on which we discussed this. So here we go. Take it away, First Officer Craig, soon to be Captain Craig.
Hey APG crew, it's FO Craig here. Just wanted to send in some feedback from episode 370 and the Embraer 170 that was scraping the wingtip on takeoff down in Mexico. Captain Jeff had reached out to me for some info on if ailerons fly-by-wire, and as he said, with my information that they are not. They are traditional cables to a power control unit, which then hydraulically actuates the ailerons to help you roll the aircraft and get it to turn. But I wanted to just throw out there, I know you guys started talking about crosswind limitations a little after that. in the Embraer 170, 175 on a dry runway. Our maximum demonstrated crosswind is 38 knots, which seems to me pretty impressive for such a small airplane as is compared to some of the larger jets. But in my experience, I have about 1,950-ish hours in the 170, 175 and flown numerous crosswind situations throughout my career so far. And on takeoff, it's pretty simple, just about with any other plane, a little nose forward on the control yoke and ailerons into the wind and whatever rudders required to keep the the airplane on the runway center line. And sometimes you do have to put a good amount of aileron control in as soon as you start lifting off, just to make sure that once you get that nose wheel off the ground, that the plane doesn't start to drift to the downwind side of the runway. But watching the video that was on the Av Herald website of the incident, the amount of pitch up attitude that the plane was using to try and lift off seemed incredibly high to me. Makes me think that maybe they weren't at their rotation speed yet, or maybe had the wrong rotation numbers and they were at the speed at which they had set, but maybe it was too low for the actual weight and of the aircraft and the current conditions outside. I mean, it's very noticeable that I had way too much wing down into the wind, or maybe that was on the downwind side, so maybe they could have counteracted it. I'm not entirely sure of the whole situation, but as far as the pitch of the attitude on the takeoff roll, it seemed excessively high, as well as the bank angle. And I have yet to have come across anything remotely close to what's seen in the video. Yeah, so that's all I got. If you have any more questions on the aircraft, let me know, and keep up the good work, and look forward to the next show. Thanks. Have a great day. See ya.
Thank you, F.O. Craig, for that. And yeah, I agree. And when you were mentioning the fact that the deck angle, the pitch attitude of the airplane at that point was pretty steep, higher than normal. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess I'm used to the airplane that I fly. We have a pretty initial steep pitch attitude when we take off, but that's very unusual compared to most airplanes. So good point. Maybe they had the wrong numbers, maybe lifted off too early, or who knows really what was going on there.
I must admit, I'd be surprised if, well, only through my own experience, if you drift far during the rotation, because I don't know, we rotated about 3 degrees a second.
I think that's pretty standard, yeah.
Yeah, and we break ground very quickly. You rotate and you're off the ground 2-3 seconds after initiating a rotation. You're really not going to drift far off the center line if that's where you started. In a strong crosswind, even a very strong crosswind.
In this case, I don't think it was so much the drifting off the center line as not compared to the American Airlines A321 that hit the sign. But in this one, I think they just dinged.
Him hitting the sign.
Wingtip.
Yeah.
On the runway. No signs involved in this one. All right.
So just roll bank more so than anything. Yeah.
But yeah, I really hadn't thought of it until he mentioned the fact that seemed like they were really nose high at that point. So who knows what was going on? Maybe setting the wrong trim, the pitch trim for takeoff, and the thing just lifted off before it really should have lifted off. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yep. Nick, would you like to do number 7, please?
Number 7 is a picture, Jeff.
Okay, that's why I picked it.
That's why he gave it to you
because you're so creative with your
describe. Yes.
Talent.
Okay, this is from Ron. Now, which Ron would this be? Since I'm not absolutely certain.
I would say it is Ron Swart.
Really?
Yeah, it says
Ron Swart? What a
Swart.
marvelous guy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. This is good. Now, obviously, Jeff flies for Acme, and I fly for Acme Red. None of us fly for Acme Bar.
No, but I think that's the next business venture.
Yes, I think you're right.
Someone's beat us to the.
No, and this is the podcast and the airline to own, Acme Bar. He's managed to find a place called Acme Bar,
In
which
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
is that where it comes from? Yeah,
Mhm.
there you go, Fort Wayne, India. Is that where the Indians come from in Indiana?
No.
No.
I mean,
okay.
Some.
some, but
Fair
not
enough.
all. Yeah.
I can see in the bottom left-hand corner of this picture of the Acme Bar, because he's taken a picture of the bar sign, which is brilliant, and I love it because that's just what we need in our show is more alcohol. It says CE 1041. Is that so? I'm assuming Acme Bar since 1041.
I think it's a 1941. That's a 9, not a 0. No.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I mean, that would be
even if
pretty
that's a
old
9,
for Fort Wayne, Indiana.
See, I was assuming it was like a British bar, most of which have been around since the 10th century.
No, 1941 is a decent amount of time for a bar to be open in the
In
US.
America, perhaps. Yeah. So actually, that's a really good bar, and I think Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Acme Bar, is going to be on my bucket list, please.
You guys should probably stop there on your way to Oshkosh.
Oh, can we?
We
do that
actually
on the way.
that's possibly doable, I think.
I think that's doable
Jeff,
for
can
you.
we do that?
Yeah, maybe. That'd be fun to
Yeah.
get a selfie in front of the Acme
Oh,
Bar in
absolutely,
Fort
the
Wayne.
Acme Bar. Yeah, wearing Acme t-shirts.
We'll have to look into the possibility.
Please.
Okay.
I'll plan your
We're
your
never
route for you now. You're never getting to Oshkosh now if you're gonna have to stop at everything.
Well, we'll just have to leave a day earlier than we planned to.
Okay. Hey, Steph.
Yes.
Let's you want to do number 10?
10, 11, 10?
Oh, I thought it was 10.
10, you're correct. So this is from John. Book recommendation: Boeing versus Airbus.
This is
But-
a
but
good
Nick,
neutral reader.
Nick doesn't care. Nick doesn't care.
No, I don't care anymore. No.
All right. He says, just a quick note. Captain Dana mentioned in episode 370 the book Boeing versus Airbus, and I wanted to pass along my recommendation for the book. It is an excellent and detailed look at how Airbus grew into the powerhouse that they are today, and how, in a lot of ways, Boeing let it happen. It also discusses how airlines go about purchasing new aircraft. It is a very well written and detailed book, and I recommend it to anyone interested in learning more about the history of the Boeing and Airbus duopoly. Take care and safe flying. John Heat. Hyde? Heat.
John Hyde.
Hyde. Yeah. So,
I played Monopoly.
have you played duopoly?
Oh, does that mean two of you have to play it?
Is that
Yes.
That takes longer than
Yeah, it actually takes longer than Monopoly.
like twice as
Yeah,
long.
You'll be there for 100 years.
Being Monopoly, how come you can get 4 players in Monopoly? I don't understand that.
Well, one of them has to create their own monopoly, create the monopoly, and that's how you win.
Is that how it works?
Force everyone else out of business.
Damn, all these years, and I never realized.
But in
We-
duopoly,
we-
two of
we
you have
just
to win.
We just got bored after like 6 hours and just counted up how many properties and then decided who was the winner. No one ever wins.
I know.
Oh no, someone wins.
Oh, Steph wins, obviously.
It's the person who's cheating and stealing the money from the bank while no one's watching.
So the banker wins.
Again.
Yes.
Steph.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Remind me not to play Monopoly against Steph at Oshkosh.
She's a very competitive person.
I'll bring it with me.
I recommend not challenging her to anything.
What,
Chicken
even beer
nugget contest, anyone?
No.
No beer drinking.
Okay. With that, that's enough. We've subjected you to
It's
enough.
only just gone past midnight.
We have subjected the listeners to enough torture for this show. We're going to save the rest of the torture for the next show. And
We have more torture for you.
we do.
Stay
Plenty
tuned.
of it.
And that was me telling Liz that I thought we'd get through tonight. No problem. I thought we'd
Well,
easily do that.
You had to say it.
Yeah, that was a lot she had in there. So
You reckon?
we usually get like 8 to 10 pieces of feedback accomplished per show.
Why did I think Fort Wayne was more towards the center of the state? You could still do it.
Yeah, it's kind of in the
It's a little out of the way.
eastern part, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Anywhere near the United States Air Force. By the way, I've been told off for calling it USAF.
Hmm.
Is it anywhere near the United States Air Force Museum?
Yeah.
It's not terribly far. A couple
What?
hours.
In American that's
What? So you're saying somebody told you that USAF is the wrong thing to say?
Yeah, I got told that no one ever. We've never heard USAF. No one ever
I've
says that
heard
in
people.
America.
I was in the USAF.
Oh right, okay.
It's not a
well,
common thing, but I've heard it.
Okay, because I said, look, I've in our military we use it all the time when we're referring to you guys.
Maybe it's just these are new generation people that have never heard it.
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
2 hours, 10 minutes driving.
Oh, that's not long.
2 hours and 10 minutes.
From Dayton
Dayton.
to Fort Wayne.
Yeah. But
And
then you have to
Fort
kind of
Wayne, would you go
head up
through
to then up to like South Bend and over to Chicago.
Yeah, we can,
Instead of through Indianapolis.
Just to
I've
get
never
a
been to
picture in
South
front-
Bend myself, so
just to get a picture in front of a bar sign.
yeah, we might have to rethink that one.
Look, you went.
I mean,
through,
it's dedication and commitment to the Acme brand.
Yeah.
You went through Winslow, Arizona twice, Jeff. On your
I
leave.
know, and
Did you get a picture of the corner?
No.
Standing on the
No.
corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Yeah, he went through it twice.
Yeah, I've been there.
really
There's
go
no reason to stop.
Look,
Really.
you just need to get a picture by the corner. There's even some statues there.
I was behind my schedule at the point, and actually there was something going on with my car that distracted me, and then I realized several miles past Winslow. Oh, darn it! I meant to stop. Oh well. Next time, I promise.
Oh,
there'll never be a next time.
There's no
Okay.
reason to go to Winslow.
All right, it's time to stop the show. So stop, abort. Thank you again for reject.
I'm rejecting your abort.
Holy oh, sorry.
Thank you for listening and downloading our podcast.
What, you think there's anyone still out there?
Well, there might be some people listening after the fact
who've fallen asleep.
Possibility.
Their subconscious might still be registering.
All right. So if you are interested, and we're not sure why you would be, but if you're interested in learning more about the show, you can head over to airlinepilotguy.com. And there's lots of stuff on that site. I'm not going to go through all of it, but one of the things that's really nice is the APG library. And that last book that Dr. Steph was talking about and Mr. John Hyde had recommended, Boeing versus Airbus, is in the APG library, because I have a note here that's highlighted that says this title has been sent to Tiffany for inclusion in the APG library. So that's one of the places you can go on the site. And you can also go to Plain Tales, which has its own page and is its own standalone podcast. If you want to subscribe to that, you want to avoid all this other stuff and, just listen to the Plain Tales, that's the way to go. And much more stuff there. And we're also on the social meds. So Steph,
Social media,
Uh-huh.
or as Jeff now calls it, the social meds, because apparently he's down
'Cause
with
I'm
the
hip.
cool kids. He's hip, yes.
kids.
We are on Twitter. You can head over to twitter.com and search for @APG Crew. That is our handle. You can find our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of the page. Feel free to interact with us and other community members there. You can also head over to facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Lots of good community interaction going on there. Articles being shared, folks planning get-togethers occasionally, information about meetups. And for more on that line of things going on, I will throw it over to Hillel.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack at airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo at airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to at Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1. And see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. And until next time. Oh, before we go, another round of applause for our producer, Liz Piper.
All right. Thank you, Liz. Good job.
Thank you for your optimism.
Keeping us on track.
Yes. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Stop. Stop.
Holy shit. Oh, shoot. All right.
Hold on, everybody.
Stop
Good job.
the,
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
Good job, Virgin.
Recording. Oh, I should have hit the record button.
Number of times I've heard that.
Dress rehearsal.
Good job.
Okay, now we're going to do the real show. Everybody ready?
Yeah. Actually, I've had some caffeine. It was a
Uh-oh.
mistake not to have caffeine before the show because I was so tired. I'm
And now
sorry.
you're going to be up.
Now I'm gonna be, but I wasn't sure I was gonna make it to the end unless I had something
Counteract
to-
it, Steph. Now you got to take the downers.
Now I got to go back to the alcohol, which I could not even finish because I was like,
There's a lot
feeling
of it
sleepy.
in those cans sometimes.
It's
Bottles seem to go down easier. Why
it's
is
16
that?
ounces. It's not even that.
No,
It's like a
not,
pint
but
glass.
I just find it harder to consume lots of beer out of cans.
Hmm.
It's a mental thing.
Pour it into
Stop recorder race.
Record.
What are you saying?
Stop your corduroys.
Liz
That's
can't
what
spell.
you're saying.
It's okay.
Don't do
Stop record. I'm just trying to figure out how you would actually pronounce that word that she wrote. I like it.
Who?
Recorder race.
Oh,
Recorder.
Recorders.
Recorderes.
Oh, the first one. Stop recorderes.
Recorderes.
Because the second one she couldn't get right either. Can't spell.
Yes.
Hey, Glenn. We need to mention Glenn Towler in our chat room was featured in an EAA publication, right?
Yes.
What's it called?
He
The
was.
Sporting.
I have no idea.
It's the official EAA publication where they interviewed a bunch of people who have been attending AirVenture for many, many years. So that was I enjoyed the basically it was written by Glenn. It was like everybody kind of writes in and talks about his first time, how he ended up hearing about the EAA and how long he's been attending. And
yeah, very cool.
Like one of the senior people that attend every year. How many years has it been, Glenn? Like 18 or something like that?
It's a lot of Oshkosh.
Yeah.
And that's, Glenn comes a long distance to go to Oshkosh. So it's a big trip for him.
Yeah. New Zealand.
It's not like it's around the corner.
Wellington, mayor of Oshkosh.
I've just found one of my crew logs in the audio file drop. What's it doing?
No, I was trying to
7 years.
You're hiding it.
I'll just put this here. He'll never notice that it never got
It's
released.
just that it's got my ugly mug attached to it. So
I think you probably put it in there. I'm sure I published it.
I think you do publish it, but I'm just looking at it going, what on earth have I put that there for? Whose ugly face is that?
Just 7 years, Glenn? I thought it was longer than that. Oh,
that's what she said.
The king of Thank you.
Okay. So they make beer out of boulders, Jeff?
Yes, apparently.
Well, you have to squeeze them very hard.
Boulder, California. Colorado. Starts with a C.
There are lots of things start with a C, some of which we can't say on the show.
Yeah.
Family show.
Yeah. So I hear some noise upstairs. I think my oldest daughter, Alyssa, is home. And so I need to discuss dinner options with her since the person who does normally take care of that thing is not here.
So what is it? Pizza or?
If it's gluten free, yeah.
Oh dear.
Actually, the gluten free crusts these days are really not that bad, in my opinion.
They've improved a lot, certainly. I
And
remember
I
the
like-
first time I tried gluten-free food, I was like, "Ooh."
Yeah, now
I had a lot of sympathy. It kind of tasted like cardboard.
A lot of times, like the pasta and other things that Linda uses in the cooking, because she goes with gluten free as well. It tastes almost as good as non gluten free. Not exactly, but they're getting better at it.
You just put some pasta sauce on it. It's fine.
Is there gluten in beer?
Yes.
Yes.
Most beer. There are some gluten free beers.
There are.
One that I've tried has been awful.
There was one I tried somewhere in Illinois, and it was fine.
Yeah. Again, they're
Don't
probably
remember which one.
over time. They're probably gotten better at it.
Yeah.
Cucumber crust, Lane cucumber crust. What? I think Jeff's chair has just collapsed. What do you?
3 levers on this, and I always sometimes I hit the wrong lever.
Well, we know you're not used to sophisticated machinery. You fly a mad dog.
Shut up.
Shut up, Jeff.
Shut
up, Jeff.
I just can't get enough of your humor.
Aren't you excited for like a really long car drive with him in a couple months?
and then a whole week.
I just looked it up. It's like 7.5 hours to Dayton from Atlanta.
Yeah, that's nothing.
I assume we're going to take a couple of days.
What? No, that's like one day.
Might have to.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to break it up, you can.
Well, I mean,
go
we're
out of your
gonna-
way to
we're
my
gonna
house.
take a
and then-
while to look around the museum.
She's just saying the first.
I'm
leg.
saying the first leg is 7.5 hours.
Oh shit! Okay.
It's a big continent we live on. I don't know.
Well, it only looked like an inch and a half on my map.
Yeah. Which projection map were you using? Was it a little distorted?
It was a picture of the globe.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have one of those. Hold on, let's see here.
Yeah, how many inches is it on that? See, it'll only be like a centimeter.
Steph, you're
So on this
video
map,
being like fuzzy.
What's that?
Your video's fuzzy.
Is it fuzzy?
Is it Mike watching Netflix again?
Probably. Yeah, so between Atlanta and Dayton is about the width of the tip of my pinky finger.
Slightly less than a centimeter.
Okay, and what does that equate to driving time?
7.5 hours.
Ah, you have your pinky finger.
This is official measurement tool.
I don't think Jeff drives that slow. I've seen him drive. He goes about 125.
Yeah, not miles per hour.
Oh, there's another kind?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It is 513 miles.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yeah, really.
Just to Dayton.
Just to
Oh, my
Dayton.
God.
And then you still got to go to Chicago and then to Oshkosh.
If you'll give me some kind of a syringe with some kind of something I can
I
poke.
can help, like a mild tranquilizer.
Yeah, I'm just putting to sleep.
For you or for Nick?
Well, for the driving part, Nick.
Okay.
Staying at wherever we're staying in hotels.
Yes. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our show. If you didn't hear it at the beginning, sorry if anybody's confused with the numbering of things. This is episode 372. Really, when you think about it, it really is. I mean, in fact, we've gypped ourselves out of several increments of our shows because we've done a bunch of 0.5 episodes
Mhm.
that are episodes. And
Also, yes.
not that we're in competition with anybody, racking up as many episodes.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Well, yeah, there you go. There's Steph.
Everything's a
So we
competition.
should have renumber everything. We're probably up to about 390 now. Anyway,
Oh,
so
yeah, what are we going to do for the 400th then? That'll happen in Oshkosh at this rate. If we're 390 now, I'm sure we can knock out 10 shows by Oshkosh.
Yeah, but we're still at 372.
Well, you just deflated me like a burst weather balloon.
We'll come up with something. We're going to start doing 2 or 3 a
That's
week.
what she
So
said.
we can get 400. And the people that are Coffee Fund cadre members on Patreon are going, no, don't do that. Don't worry. We're not going to do
There's a
that.
cap. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I got to go. So
Okay.
thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. I know that we enjoyed being here and talking about stuff. And until next time, see ya.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Yeah, brilliant.